validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa, I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
All right, how you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Andrew, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. We had us a little bit of a decent night tonight. I decided I was going to start sweeping the computer right before the show. But that was one of the reasons why I was late. I was late because I was making some coffee. Special shout out to OG Kicks. I had to make myself some coffee before the show. I was looking at the show like, oh, it's time to start. And I was like, 5 more minutes. I had to give me a couple. Cause like you know, when you get old, you don't put that much effort into going to the store and buying yourself sweets, right? So you don't have the Kool-Aid you used to have when you grew up. You don't have the cold drinks in the fridge and stuff, the Yoo-Hoos and Nestle Quicks and all that other stuff that you used to have growing up. So really, when you decide that you want something besides a bottled water, you think to yourself, what can I get? Because there's nothing in here. And ultimately, that does help you in your older ages to avoid, diabetes, because you got your type 1 and type 2 diabetes. One of them is going to be a natural situation that you just can't control, and the other one is going to be from too much glucose intake, right? So As you get older, body doesn't defend itself against sugar rushes as much as it used to, and you might start ending up being concerned about, diabetes. Well, when you start not depending on so much sugar, your body starts producing its own natural sugars, and then you find yourself in a situation where you're actually able to function better and do more and not have to deal with the crash, right? So you get used to it and you stop buying it, right? Kind of what happened. So I want something that's not bottled water. And I'm like, you know what? As important as the show is, I was a little bit burned yesterday. I need a little bit of a sugar rush to get me over the 2 hour mark. I need to make me some coffee. But I drink so much coffee on a regular basis to the point where almost codependent on the coffee. So in order for me to make sure that my system's correct, I got myself off the coffee every now and again, and that's why you see me on the show with no coffee that day. But more often than not, this big behind cup is covered with 36 ounces of straight up dark coffee. It's not none of that Luke Cage coffee though. I'm still trying to get my hands on some of that. Anybody who watched Luke Cage know what I'm talking about. Now, we don't have very many updates, but we did manage to make sure that we got actually the next few weeks worth of scripts together. We managed to fuse in what happened with the straight negotiations versus what's going on with the automakers discussion for this coming Monday night show. And then we do have the rest of the week already lined up so that the majority of the scripts are ready, and we're going to be actually spending the next week because I got a lot more time off from work getting all the scripts ready for the next couple months. So we're going to be trying to pace ourselves in a position where, like I told you guys before, I was setting a goal that when daylight savings times hit, that we'd be able to start 5 minutes after the top of the hour. So we should be able to start at 11:05 Eastern Standard Time come daylight savings time. But daylight savings time is in November. We're in June. But I tell you guys on a regular basis that while we do not let the sun rise without going live, we don't always start on time. And that's why we ask you guys to like and subscribe, mash those reaction buttons while you're here, hit the notification button so that you can catch some of the other shows that are coming up. And what's more important is that we've got shows listed all the way out to October right now, September, October right now. So there's a lot of topics that we're talking about. We cover different topics every night of the week. Sunday tonight is going to be questions and comments from the fans. So we're going to be dealing with some Murder, She Wrote, As the World Turns, chaotic ex-girlfriends kind of topics today. But any questions that any fans have, that's appropriately structured questions about appropriate topics. They can put that into the comment section about you guys, and I can give you guys information about that. Those people that want like in-depth personal questions about me, you're probably going to have to join the membership and then participate in one of the membership only shows. Outside of that, we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which is going to be about business and politics, where we talk about on Monday how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. I know I have a lot of people that try to dive in and come from like a left wing or right wing argument. Some come in trying to be true blooded Republicans and prove that Democrats are idiots, and then others just come in and swear up and down how much they hate Donald Trump. And just because I'm talking about how the topic impacts your money, people will come in and disagree with the fact that I'm talking about the topic. That they don't disagree with the facts. They don't disagree with the logic. They just disagree with the fact that I'm talking about it because Donald Trump's involved. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm neither for nor against the man. I'm just talking about how what they're doing impacts your ability to make money. So, anybody who has a political bone in their body, they can feel free to come in on Monday nights and we can talk about what's going on. But remember, my position is fucking with my money. So if your position is, you hate Donald Trump, or if your position is Democrats are idiots, neither one of those refutes in any way, shape, or form my observation that what's happening is negatively impacting your money. Or if you're like Steven benefiting from the downturns, it's positively impacting your money because you're going to be turning over a shit ton of profits because I just pointed out where the situation's going south and where you can capitalize on that downward turn. For others, it could be an upward swing for you. So there's that. Now, After Monday, on Tuesdays, we talk about different ways to make money, save money, invest money, budget money. So we also go over some strategies that some of the wealthy people utilize in order for them to balance their budgets, uh, and not just balance their budgets, their entire portfolio, their inheritance, their savings, everything. We talk about different ways to do that. Now, some of these ways for the average individual that's reasonably financially challenged, it doesn't seem like it's a very beneficial thing for you because the quantity of money that is used for certain strategies is only used when you have certain quantities of money. Now, knowing about these strategies and striving to get there is two different things. Knowing what to do when you get there, planning for it, telling yourself, well, I'm going to incorporate that once I start doing this. That gives you the next steps to whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, which is actually very important. So even if you're living paycheck to paycheck right now, and your first short-term goal is to live under 30% of your income, if that's your first short-term goal, knowing where to put the money at when you start creeping down your expenses, because a lot of people are living at 90 to 98% of their income, with their discretionary spending being outrageously on short-term gratification. And you may find yourself in a position where the less stuff you waste on things you don't need, the more money you have to invest in your future. The more money you invest in your future, the more money you start getting back off of your investment for your future, which encourages you to invest more into your future. At some point, you're going to see yourself building a trust. At some point, you're going to see yourself building life insurance policies. At some point, you're going to see yourself building all kinds of things. You could see yourself building a trust, and then instead of having certain family members put you as the beneficiary of their policies, you may go to those individuals and ask them to put your trust as the beneficiary of their policies, so that the money goes directly into the trust that you're already trying to build. You can start changing the way you communicate with individuals, because just like uh, we've had a lot of discussions about relationships where relationships don't go the way we want them to go. But if we would have prepared for that going forward, if we would have put certain things like the relationship contract, the girlfriend contract on deck, where the division of assets was discussed before we start pooling our money together to pay for each other's bills, before we start pooling our money together and pooling our stuff together to move into one location, we start doing that girlfriend contract and start building up that behavior pattern that we're going to discuss finances from a business perspective, not impulsively believe that she's a girl and she's entitled to half of my estate just because she agreed to let me sleep with her, kind of thing, for on a consistent basis. That's not the dynamic that is healthy for either person, because when the woman is the one that has the larger quantity of wealth and the man is there, most women would say protect your assets. So with that logic, you want to protect your assets on both sides of the fence, right? Now, if you're building a generational wealth, and you're doing that by building trust, even if you build small level trust, and those small level trusts are producing a revolving capital, you can set certain trust up that says it starts paying you out money immediately, or you can have revolving trust that's going to build the wealth until you reach a certain age, and then it starts releasing you money. So if you're in your early 20s, you could be building trust in certain relationships where it's a 50-50 split after both parties reach age 50. It could be in your younger years, mandatory 50-50 split. So as soon as y'all break up, you're still getting dividends from this brokerage account, so that you can put that money into a new trust where you have this trust over here, this trust over here, that trust over there, and doing the same thing over and over and over again, to where ultimately, instead of you rebalancing into the trust with your first relationship at 18, you're rebalancing into a portfolio that you're currently directly trying to grow. You'll find that if you did that particular type of behavior pattern, where you guys had that girlfriend contract from the beginning, you had that division of assets in the beginning, you guys had a written contractual guarantee that leads to the development of like a small family trust in a relationship, where that family trust can become irrevocable family trust upon y'all breaking up with one another, so that nobody can screw nobody else over, and have it switch over to an automated system that will funnel your money back to you from a third party, where you don't got to worry about your ex wiping out all the money. The fact is, you guys can set certain things up in certain ways where instead of us getting pissed off at each other and throwing stuff and breaking stuff and this, that, and the third, it's like, look, we just 50% dividends every month and just move on. And then you can start up another trust with another person. And if you think with the number of relationships that a lot of us have been in, because truth be told, until you get tired of the way you're being treated in relationships and you get tired of the breakups and this, that, and third, you find yourself in a relationship every year and a half, 1 year, 5 months, 6 days. So typically every year, every other year, you're in a relationship. And the truth of the matter is that if you started doing that at 18, building trust, and then building a new trust with each new relationship, that turns into a financial commitment, because you're not going to do it with every person that you hook up with, but each time you think, oh, I love him, build a trust. Build a trust. And from that dynamic, you'll find yourself with at least once every 3 years or once every 4 years with a second trust or a third trust or so forth. So between 18 and 30, you might have 5 or 7 trusts floating around where each one of them's paying you dividends off of the past 10 to 12 years. And you'll be able to, in your middle ages, in your 30s and 40s, be putting those trusts to good use, where you can start building on where you can continue building on your future. That's the kind of stuff that people don't think about. He said, never give your kids money, spend it all. That's not a smart move. Leaving money to my dogs, that's smarter than spending all of the money. So here's the thing. You say never give your money, never give your kids money, spend it all. I would say the exact opposite. Teach your children how to invest the money if you were to give it to them, so that if any event you left anything behind, they would know how to use it. Then when you structuralize these things in a trust and structuralize these things in certain asset bearing situations, because you got to understand, if you have a trust built so thick where you ultimately control the way that they spend the money, the trustees will release the money for specific reasons, and then the trustees will give them instructions to perform. So like, for example, if you want them to have the financial knowledge and the financial skill set, you might test that knowledge or test that skill set by doing certain things. Some parents put trust together to say that after you're married, that you get X, Y, and Z. And some people try to cheat the system by getting married with a raggedy person and say, oh, well, we're going to split the money. If we get married, we get all these millions of dollars. You know, you could have a situation that says, well, upon a marriage, you start getting released a monthly stipend. You're not going to get millions of dollars, but you will get a check that'll cover your standard of living, so that you don't got to worry about what you're going to do with the money. And it could be a 3-part process, because if you buy a property that is a non-rental property, it's a homestead, and the trust is paying for all the utilities, and then the only thing that's being issued is standard living spending, like cell phone bill, car insurance bill, taking into consideration inflation, gas bill, and then maybe a little bit of discretionary spending on top of that for like minute luxuries. You can find a person in New York owning a house or owning a condo in New York where everything's paid for except for the transportation and the cell phone bill, and they might issue you like $3,000 a month or $2,000 a month out of the trust. Now, some people might be like, oh, that's fucked up, blah, 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 blah. But if you've got $2,000 worth of spending money every month, and your entire standard of living in New York is paid for by the trust, and that $2,000, that's $24,000 a year that you have no responsibility, right? They don't have to give you $10, $15, $20, $30,000 a year. And as you build wealth, you can actually build properties in different states or buy properties in different states, so that your family can move to different states and actually live in some of the family homesteads. And you're giving them discretionary spending on top of that to say, well, this $2,000 worth of spending money will cover you no matter where you go. The only reason why $2,000 a month is not enough money is because a lot of people factor in the cost of living. But if the cost of living is covered, like I said, rent, light, gas, water bills covered, property insurance covered, your health insurance policy is covered. The only thing that's not being paid for is your personal cell phone bill and your vehicle that you're driving. Then at the end of the day, the $2,000 a month will cover all that. And then you're basically picking where they're going to live. And you're limiting what they're going to do with the money. And if they want to do anything more than that, get a fucking job. If they want money, let them earn it. Show them how to fish, as the Bible say. But as illogical, that is also logical. The fact is that if you're building generational wealth, you're building generational wealth in order for them to have a baseline of stability so that they don't fall off. When you say, oh, well, spend all the money and don't give your kids anything. I mean, if you're going to make yourself a multi-millionaire and then spend all the money before you die, you're not really doing anything. You're not accomplishing anything at all. If you're going to build generational wealth, you're leaving millions behind or hundreds of thousands behind, depending on what kind of person you are. If you're leaving money behind, you're going to leave that money behind for the next generation. But if you're leaving it behind for the next generation, you're leaving it behind for their stability so that they're not homeless, so that even if they're unemployed, so that they're not starving, even if they don't have a job, they always have a place to live. You're trying to leave them with a base level of stability. So if they want to be richer than what you dedicated to them, then they can go get them a fucking job. But the same way, those individuals that would ride the waves of Social Security disability or something to that effect, get one of those crazy checks for their kids and shit, they'll sit on Section 8 and ride on government funds and live off $1,000 a month. So if they can get a free house and then get $1,000 a month, they'll move a roommate in there, cover the utilities, and fuck around and have X, Y, and Z quantity of people in the property and have all this extra money and wasted all that money on prom. I'm going to keep getting on these people with prom because that was a bad decision. But if you were to give your children enough money for them to have discretionary spending where they can live in a house by themselves, and you have strict requirements. This is a homestead, not a rental property, so it cannot be subletted by the family member to anyone else. And upon that knowledge, if the property is discovered to be subletted, then the person subletting the property would be removed from the property, as well as the person being subletted to. These type of strict requirements prevents them from trying to exploit the assets that you built for your kids, right? So ultimately, you have you set it up where the kids have the ability. Because again, when you say, well, teach a man to fish, don't just give him a fish. What do you got to do to teach him how to fish? You have to give him the equipment to fish. So what do you got to do to teach your kids to be stable? You got to give them a little something to be stable. You can't just tell a man, oh, well, if you went down to the store and bought yourself a rod and reel with no money, came back and I could show you how to fish, they're never going to have what they need to be successful. But if you gave them your rod and reel and showed them how to fish with your rod and reel, they can use that rod and reel to continue to fish for themselves. That's what generational wealth is about. I'm not saying, oh, well, give all your money to your kids and let them be out there like Charlie Sheen snorting cork off of some miner's chest in the middle of Vegas. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is you give them a basic level of foundational stability and then allow for them to stack on top of that. And a lot of things you can do in a trust is make certain criteria that makes them responsible for showing and proving their financial stability and financial understandings. So as the Bible says, if you have two of, you're supposed to give one to the next man because they have not. People don't do that either. So it's not just so much as the Bible says, if teach them how to fish instead of giving them a fish. It's more to the magnitude because truthfully, if you really want to go off of that Bible verse, the Lord had gotten a fish and 2 loaves of bread and was giving everybody fish and bread without teaching anybody how to fish. And he, matter of fact, shared his down to a full load, as small as it was, the 1 fish and 2 loaves of bread with 40 men. So when you start trying to quote the Bible on the topic, you're coming from a misconceived notion in and of that specific location, because truth is that he gave it away. He didn't teach them nothing. He said, trust me, I got you, and I'm going to give you what you need. And that is, again, building a legacy, building a trust, building a and all of the beneficiaries that benefited from that 2 loaves of bread and that fish All they had to do was just continue to follow his instructions, which is following the instructions of the trust, and they would continue to get that 2 loaves of bread and the fish. But that it didn't make them full, it didn't make them fat, but it did keep them alive. It did keep them sustained, and that's what you're supposed to be doing with a trust, is making sure that they don't fall off, not uh, you know, try to force them to figure out how to pick themselves up from their bootstraps. You've already done that. So now what you're supposed to do, if you're going to be a responsible adult, is teach them everything that you know. Maybe write a couple dozen ebooks about it and put it up online. Have them read the ebooks, learn everything that you have to offer, make some tests about it, have them pass the test. And each time you pass a test, they get a percentage more distribution from the brokerage account because they're showing you more financial knowledge. But regardless of how you do it, you set it up in a way where you're going to make them successful through your trust, not them just riding the coattails of your legacy. Because I only buy property that I can get to in about an hour from where I live. Yeah, you can do that, because if you're trying to buy some stuff, then that means that if you were trying to build a trust and you're trying to build a legacy for the next generation, then all your family members will be living in the same state within an hour of one another, which would make it easier for family meetings and building an empire that would allow for the rest of the family to get into one of those. Oh man, that's what we were supposed to be talking about. I just thought about it. The family corporation, I think that's what it was called. Somebody had asked me about it. I'm gonna have to put that up there on one of those Tuesday night shows. But that's what it would be about. But if everybody's living within an hour of one another, then we could come together and talk about how the finances should be handled in situations where the trust isn't operating that. You know, is it it's easier to manage it. It's easier to manage it if you are the only person managing it, but you can get a property in each one of the 50 states so that your family can branch out, and you can have a trustee handling each one of the properties. Now, granted, across state lines, a trust is going to have to hire somebody local to go to the property and go and check things out and make sure that things is going on, which means that's going to be a little bit of a cost. But regardless of the fact, you know, it is still able to be managed nationwide from a trustee, as long as it is put into the trust that the trustee must manage these properties. You just got to make sure that you put enough money into the trust where the trustee has the capital to manage these properties, right? Here we go. He said, well, Laura said, you will not eat at my table if you don't work. No. I love the way people take the scripture out of context. I love the way the scripture people take the scripture out of context. What you do is you take one sentence out of the whole book, out of a whole paragraph, and then put it under the wrong light, and then, try to throw it into a conversation that it loses its original meaning, right? So faith without work is dead, and believing in something that you're not going to put any effort into is going to be where this particular sentence is going to come from. Okay, you can't believe that I'm going to feed you if your ass ain't going to put in no work for me to get the bounty for you to eat from, right? So those people who pray on a regular basis but don't put any effort towards changing their lives and making better decisions are not going to benefit from dropping down on one or two knees and praying for new beginnings and new hope and more options if they're not willing to take advantage of those options, right? So that's where that scripture is coming from. Because again, when he rescued, the Jews, and they crossed the desert 40 days and 40 nights, what work did they do to get the fish and the 2 loaves of bread? No, nothing. When Moses parted the Red Sea and they followed them across the Red Sea, what did they do to get the loaf and the fish and the 2 loaves of bread? Nothing. They just followed him. They just did what he said do. All they did was follow instructions. Didn't put in any work. They were just on the run. Okay. You got to think about this. So, if you keep the concepts of the scripture in the right context, then you will find out that a lot of churches are teaching y'all the wrong stuff. The only country that has a family name is Saudi Arabia, one of the richest families in the world. It has generational wealth. I don't think you're understanding what I'm talking about there. I don't know. Maybe I was breaking up when I mentioned it because I wasn't talking about a country family name. I was saying that a family name business or a trust, or I think it was called a financial corporation. I'd have to go back and double check what the actual verbiage was because one of the fans came and asked me about it. I think it was FX Trader, and I said that I'd talk about it on the show eventually because I still had to set up those shows. But what it is the estate left behind to the family. Typically in other countries like Asia, where they have the head of the family uh, dictates what happens to the rest of the family's assets, their distributions, where the almost like the trustee is the head of the household. But there are certain family estates that's set up where the collective of the family gets together like a board and they discuss what is going to happen with the estate, what's going to happen with the houses, what's going to happen to the money, where is it going to be reallocated, and the family as a group, as a collective, decides where the money goes from the top down, right? Now, there can be a hierarchy where one person at the top, that's considered the head of the family, the eldest in the family, decides who gets what where and reallocates things and redistributes things as it goes down and then passes that authority on to the next heir of the family from generation to generation where people can skip. But that's not what you're talking about, with Saudi Arabia being the only country that's named after a family and being generational wealth. Um, so yeah, you are definitely confused. It is Sunday night creeping into Monday morning, so you're definitely confused. Yeah, maybe like the Rockefellers or the way. No, I'm not talking about Johnson and Johnson. No, that's completely different because you're talking about a business structure where it makes profits off of sales with consumers. I'm talking about a personal estate, like all of your personal wealth. If you died and you had 5 kids and they came together like CEOs of your money and they decided what happened to your money after you passed away, that's what I'm referring to. Completely different than it's more to the magnitude of like the Rockefellers. But like the Rockefellers, you would have generational wealth where you would have generational wealth knowledge that will be passed on from generation to generation. And the ones with the most wealth knowledge would maintain expanding the wealth so that generations to come, that wealth is still there. And like the Rockefellers, you wouldn't say, oh, well, I'm not going to give my kids any money. I'm going to limit the quantity of money they have for them to be able to afford to maintain the base levels of the lifestyle I want them to have. So if you wanted them to have a $10,000 a month lifestyle, you would first, from 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, teach them financial responsibility. And then after you taught them that financial responsibility, then you would start giving them these large quantities of money where they would know how to invest that money, save that money, redirect that money, and not be broke, not have to work hard, where they would spend more of their time making big business decisions and less time working for somebody else. And they would have the lifestyle you wanted them to have, where if they were to lose a job or have a bad business deal, they would still have a base level of income coming in to prevent them from going homeless or going bankrupt or whatever the case may be. That is what your generational wealth is supposed to be. It is supposed to be a safety net, not a crutch. So teaching them how to fish without giving them a fucking pole doesn't help them do shit because they still can't get it on their own. Giving them a pole, giving them all the tools and resources they need to be successful, and then showing them how to use it is how you make them successful. So you show them how to spend the money effectively. Then you give them the money so that they have a baseline to work with and let them capitalize on what they've gotten from you so that they no longer have to depend on your money the way Donald Trump did. So Donald Trump inherited, I think, $5 million or so when he first got started. And even though he went bankrupt 6 times, worth $4 billion, $4+ billion. The fact of the matter is that he started with a handout, and then he made the right business decisions to get to the point where he is now one of the richest men in the country, one of the men in the world, right? Not everybody can say that. Because I know people that gives trust funds monthly of $10,000 per month. Of course you do. And there are people who get trust fund money of $10,000 a month. You have, like, if you have a baseline trust fund that says that each beneficiary is supposed to get X number of percentage instead of a fixed amount, if the trust is making that kind of money where there's 10 people there getting $10,000 a month, it's possible. Okay, most people invest the money. Good. Then that means that they have financial knowledge to back that $10,000 a month giveaway. But if you have people that are not taught financial responsibility, and then they're given $10,000 a month, they're going to spend it on their friends, their families. They're going to buy attention. They're going to waste it. They're going to party like rock stars because they know that they're going to get that $10,000 a month every month. So it's your ability to limit what they get and then teach them what to do with it. And then as they learn how to do things with it, you can increase their allocations as they get older. You can start off by giving them 1% of the money per person and then increase it to 2% when they show a certain level of financial responsibility to the trust, to the trustee, increase it to 5% after they've done certain deals where they've locked in certain quantities of assets. You can do a stair stepper situation where they can start off with a couple $1,000s a month so that they're not broke. And then when they start getting older and getting smarter and making better decisions, they'll find themselves starting to get $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $7,000. The older they get, the closer they get to $10,000 a month, so they don't have to struggle. And it works with inflation, but that requires you to plan all of these things in your early years in your livelihood, right? So that's what we talk about on Tuesdays. And then on Wednesdays, we give you guys information about different countries around the world to live in, where international wealth, you would have certain trustees over certain assets in certain countries, plain and simple. And that benefits you because if you have a trust here in America for limited stuff, and then you have a trust in another country for other stuff, you can have one trustee reallocate money to another trust where that second trust is a beneficiary to the first trust. So if you built a basic level trust right now in one spot, and then you build another more complex trust in another country when you get your assets up, then you can have your money in America doing certain things, and then secondary transfer your benefits to this other trust where that trust protects your money. More often than not, you'll have your property trust in one location with enough money to handle the properties, and then anything left over gets funneled over into another trust where that trust handles all your money. Someone got to teach you, or you have to be auto-doctrinated, self-taught. I understand that. Ultimately, you as first generation would have to teach your legacy. Whether you're teaching the parents of your grandchildren, or you're teaching your kids themselves. What you would decide to do, just like creating a living will, whoever doesn't want to fucking listen, they're cut out of the will the same way they're cut out of the trust. They're not going to be a beneficiary because they're not following your instructions, right? You will have some that you will teach, and then you will have those teach others, right? And in order for certain people to get certain benefits, they have to accomplish certain tasks and certain goals, which means your trust starts becoming very, very complex. We're going to be talking about this when we start talking about the life insurance topic, because one of the things you pass on with this generational wealth is the ability to control this generation from beyond the grave. Now, if you have individuals that are going to learn how to make this bigger, and what would motivate them to make this bigger? Well, all the fucking kids that you're going to be putting on there. Because if you're going to get on there, your husband or wife is going to get on there. You're going to put your 3 or 4 kids on there. you're going to want to put your grandkids on there, and your grandkids is probably going to have grandkids, and that means that you're going to have to structuralize it in a way where it can capitalize for the next generation, so that because the more people attached to the same pot, the less money is being dispersed per person. So having that understanding, if you want to have 5 kids, you've got to be able to divide your cut 5 ways, or divide your cut 6 ways, or divide your cut 7 ways if you're trying to include your partner in there as well. So all of that has to come from you learning, building it, and that answers your question, because you're asking the most ridiculous question possible. Because how can you have generational wealth that you created if you're going to ask, well, who taught you? Well, whether you learned it on your own or somebody, or you came to this podcast and I taught you. Once you learn how to do it, you teach everybody else how you made your wealth legally, so that they can manage and expand your wealth legally, so that your wealth will forever be there for the generations to come. And the people with the most responsible decision-making skills with your wealth while you're alive will be the ones more in charge of your wealth after you pass. Or a third-party company that is good at keeping wealth growing will be responsible for keeping wealth growing, and then you will probably put the responsibility on that entity to allocate money to your kids if your kids are going to be responsible. If you're going to just have a bunch of kids that's just going to take whatever you give them and run with it, you might have $1 million trust and say each person gets $2,000 a month and free stay on one of the properties that I own. But you might have $2 million worth of money, and each person is getting $2,000. The thing could be making $400,000 a month. I mean, $400,000 a year, and each person's only getting $2,000. The trust will only bubble burst if you have so many people on the policy and nobody's got a life insurance policy. And when people die, that life insurance policy doesn't put those millions of dollars back into the trust to maximize and multiply the trust. Even in that dynamic, like I said before, you can have a living trust for somebody, whole life trust policy, and we're going to be talking about one of those coming soon, and then have the trust be the beneficiary, and the trust can take out of the distribution to that particular beneficiary, the person, the monthly payments for that particular trust. So say, for example, you've got 20 family members on one trust. Say that trust has enough money to cover this particular example. And then say that trust has a stipulation that those 20 family members, each one of those family members must have $1 million or more trust, or not trust, life insurance policy under their name to get distributions from the trust. Regardless of how much that premium costs, the trust pays for the premium. And then the difference is given to the benefactor of the trust. So the insurance policy is guaranteed. If somebody out of the 20 people dies, those millions of dollars gets put into the trust as a principal, reallocated into the brokerage account. Now there's more money to distribute to the people that are left alive. Over the course of 50 years, at least 10 of them are going to die, which is going to put $10 or $15 million back into this trust, where this trust can then reallocate that money for the remaining 10 plus their legacy, which will allow for the trust to continue to replenish itself. Right? That's just one dynamic that keeps it alive, where it does not run out of money no matter how many people get added to it. Right? Because what if they have an early death and the trust goes in quick, or they live 100 years and the trust gets the money late? The fact is that at some point, the trust is going to get more capital. It's going to relocate it into the brokerage account and then distribute the money from the dividends to the remaining benefactors or successor benefactors, right? All of that makes sense to some degree. But like I said, if you're trying to set it up in a way where people are going to learn how to do things and then take what they learn and make themselves more successful, you're going to have more rules and more restrictions on your trust document, almost like a living will, where they must learn certain things, they must achieve certain skills, they must show certain results. And you can't cheat the system when you have to show certain results, because you can't pay somebody on the left to come and tell the trustee they know what they're doing. The trustee has to test them on that. You got to know the ins and outs of a real estate investment trust before I give you X, Y, and Z. You got to know the ins and outs of all of the things that I'm telling you in this book. If I wrote a book about it, you know, you got to give me the knowledge about this so that I can verify that you have this knowledge in order for me to give you an increase in distributions. Right? If you don't want to put in the work, that's fine. You get the bare minimum, just enough where you're not hungry and just enough where you're not homeless, but not enough for you to be extremely wasteful. Right? That's kind of the dynamic that you got to understand. Like it's about, you can't predict everything about the future, but what you can do is based on your pessimistic observations of everything negative about how a situation could go south, that same pessimistic behavior, you can put rules in the trust that restricts certain behavior to prevent that from happening. So as much as you can assume that it could go bad, is as many rules as you can put in place to prevent that from happening. If you were extremely optimistic to believe that everything is going to be like horseshoes and rainbows, and no everybody's going to be responsible, nobody's going to try to cheat the system, nobody's going to try to fuck it up, then you can have a open-ended trust that just gives money to the next generation. But if you know that human nature, even family members, are devious, lazy, greedy, deceitful, then you will put up the type of structure to offset most of that, which will protect the majority of the trust from the majority of the deceitful behavior, to preserve it for the majority of people who would benefit from it and do the right thing from it. Right? Your goal was to make sure that your legacy doesn't have to suffer, doesn't prevent them from suffering, but your goal was to make sure that they didn't have to suffer. If at least one or two generations are covered by that, and then the fourth generation are bankrupt, you can't really do too much about that. You're dead. That is the one true statement you said today. You prepared for the worst and hope for the best, and whatever the fuck happens, it didn't happen to them because you're dead. But at the beginning of the discussion, you were saying, "Oh well, you know, don't give the kids nothing. Spend it all on yourself." No, don't spend shit. You teach your kids by spending wisely as an adult. Teach your kids why to spend wisely. Have those discussions about the difference between branding and quality, because branding and quality are not the same thing. Branding is exactly that, the trust in the brand, and quality is the durability of the product. And unbranded quality can exist where branded low quality also exists on the same shelf, and poor people are taught to socially stigmatize people who don't have recognized branding. But the truth of the matter is that those poor people that are advertising branding are broke trying to look rich, while the wealthy have unrecognized non-branded quality that is probably a lot cheaper, more durable, lasts longer. And those people have more money in their pocket. Those people have less stress. Those people have less frustration. Those people don't have to try as hard to make their money. So teaching your children the difference between going to school with the latest pair of Jordans on and going to school with a durable pair of shoes on is teaching your kids quality over branding, right? So instead of going to prom with $40,000 worth of bullshit, you're going to prom with a regular $200 suit at the most, if necessary. $500 if you had to buy a pair of shoes that was expensive for the kid because they had custom size 16. But beyond that, what you needed to get by is all we're going to pay for. We're not buying you a freaking wedding dress style prom outfit. You know, we're going to get you something reasonable so that you can go to this event and have a good time and then bring your ass home, right? Because what happens after prom is more important than what happens at prom, right? That's what people don't think about. Because you can really go to prom with you can pull off an Elon Musk. You can go there with a black t-shirt, black blazer, black jeans, some black Vans, and go in there just like that and probably spend $50, $75, go to prom, come out and have a mansion party. And would have been so much better off than wasting all that money to walk into the gym and stare at everybody. Because y'all already know what prom is like. The girls are on one side of the room, the guys are on the other side of the room. They're looking at one another. Their teacher is there. They can't really interact with one another the way they want to. 2 feet apart, no touching, all this other bullshit. It's a dynamic that why are you wasting all this money to impress people? Is that at what age should these ideas be started? I've already told you, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. So if you have any type of financial knowledge of any kind, you're supposed to be teaching your kids what you learned when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, before they can get to preschool and be corrupted by the teachers in preschool. You want to make sure that you're teaching your kids at home. That way, by the time they get to middle school, where people start judging each other based on the shit they have. Because when they're in elementary school and preschool, everybody's got their Ninja Turtle outfit. That's the first levels of branding. Their Paw Patrol, their Blues Clues outfits. That's their first introductions of branding right there. Then they get to middle school, and then they start learning about from the oldest kids in the school. The youngest kids in the school start learning about name brand shoes and name brand clothes and what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed to. So they get their attire from the other kids in the school. By the time they get to junior high school and high school, it is a fashion show. And then the kids who are taught by society pressure the parents to buy certain things so that the kids can fit in, where because the parents didn't teach the kids anything about being financially responsible, the parents are trying to help the child keep up with the Joneses reputationally, and the parents are trying to buy the kid what the kid asks for, which changes the dynamic of authority, because now the kid is in control of what the kid gets and tells the parent who's working for all this money and paying for the kid what to do and how to do it, which prevents the parent from teaching a child anything, because now the parent's just submitting to the demands of the child, which is freaking stupid. But that's what parents do. And the temper tantrum, oh, I want this, and da da da. You don't love me if you won't get this. Well, fucker, if you want it, you better go to the store and go get it, because I got you this, and this is what you're supposed to have, and this is why you have it. Now, if you want to keep up with the Joneses and you want to go broke, you get you a job, get you a side hustle, find you a way to make you some extra money, and go buy that bullshit. But that's going to be a waste of money, because then when you come back with the latest whatever, they're going to have the one that comes after that. By the time you afford to get the one that everybody else has got, you're going to be chasing them. They're going to have the next generation, and then they're going to be mocking you because you have last gen stuff, and that's a waste of money. But you teach that to them. He said, that problem is still bothering you. Bro, irresponsible financial behavior is going to continue to bother me. And I'm going to always talk about irresponsible behavior. And since they took all their fucking tax money and they were financially irresponsible, I'm gonna be talking about their ass till next tax season. The sad part is most parents don't understand it. I know, and a lot of parents are gonna have to start coming to this show. A lot of parents are gonna have to start coming to this show. I'm gonna have to find a way to get the word out, but a lot of parents are gonna have to start coming to the show, because it makes absolutely no sense that 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, you're wasting all this money on your kids so that you can say that you're a good parent. You're not teaching your kids to be prepared for society. You're wondering why your life sucks being broke. Your kid's life is going to suck just like your life, if not worse, because things are going to cost more money and they're going to have more competition, because they're not going to be competing against the next human being standing next to them. They're not going to be competing against the next immigrant with a passport. They're going to be competing with the machines that you and your grandparents made, which is going to make your kids have a harder time with finding a job. So they need to be trying to teach them something. He said kids are branded at the very early ages. Most kids now McDonald's, cereal boxes, and Cheerios. Well, we brand the kid. So we as parents brand the kids because we remember Cheerios when we were growing up, Corn Flakes, Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, all those cereal boxes. Then because we don't just go and get cereal just for the cereal, right? Because we have to get the Tony the Tiger Corn Flakes, not the regular cereal box that says Corn Flakes, right? We have to get the Lucky Charms with the little leprechaun on it. We have to get the Fruit Loops with the Toucan Sam on it. We can't just get loops, right? You know, we teach the children branding by buying brands. We teach the children branding at McDonald's by getting Happy Meals, right? We teach the children branding by buying all the cute little Blues Clues and Paws Patrol, and Ninja Turtles, and My Little Pony, and Dora the Explorer, and all this other shit. And these brands be imprinted on the shoes. These brands are imprinted on the clothes. So they'll go to school with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on their shirt, with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on their shoes, and that's branding. When they get older, they're going to have Rocawear, they're going to have Nike, they're going to have Reebok, Louis Vuitton, they're going to have branding. It says Louis Vuitton across the chest, it says Louis Vuitton on the shoes, right? It's just teaching the children branding instead of teaching them how to be financially responsible. Society branded you, which is advertisement. Yes. No. You branded yourself trying to keep up with society. And advertisement capitalizes on that because society doesn't do shit. This is one of the funniest things about it. The fact is that most people are collective in mind. Their mindset is collective. They don't want to be left out. And I understand the pack mentality is an instinct from, you know, primal ages, where if you stray from the pack, you end up getting eliminated. So wanting to be included in a pack does make sense. But the pack mentality is that people are willing to spend a lot of money to fit into a group that they don't necessarily belong in. That's the biggest issue. Okay? So you're trying to fit in a group of people that you don't belong in, and you're paying a lot of money to impress them to fit in a group that you don't belong in. You will adhere to their branding, like branding a cattle, so that you can be included in the herd. So you'll buy the same clothes that they buy at the same stores that they buy it at the same price that they pay, even if you can't afford it, so that you can be included in the group because you're wearing the same kind of clothes that they wear. Y'all don't have the same personalities, y'all don't have the same interests, y'all don't have the same hobbies, but because you're able to sit with the group, you're able to eat lunch with the group, you're able to hang out with the group, because y'all wear the same kind of clothes, branding is how y'all come together. And that is not, it's a social construct, but society doesn't brand you. You brand yourself to fit in. Because again, when your parents are buying you clothes from the dollar store and Payless and all these other cheap stores, when you are in first, second, and third grade, nobody gives a shit. You start giving a shit when your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is for babies because you're in the fifth grade, right? You start giving a shit when when nobody wants to hang out with you during recess because you got your outfit from the Goodwill or Salvation Army or a thrift store or a cheap clothing store or Walmart, something like that, right? So society doesn't brand you, you brand you. It is a form of peer pressure. Toothpaste, well, Crest actually, it is a brand, but Crest is actually a different dynamic because you got things like Crest and Sensodyne that have historical medical documentation that proves that they work for what they're designed for. So Crest and Sensodyne are two of the better branded toothpaste that rebuild enamel and whiten teeth that's been stained. You have other toothpastes that are just toothpaste. They don't do anything. They just, I can't remember what's in there, the folic acid, the folite, or whatever. I can't remember what's all in the toothpaste, but it's just the stuff to help to get your teeth clean. You have some that help with gum disease, some that help with sensitive teeth, and the stuff actually does work for what it's branded for. But you don't have a no-name brand toothpaste that does the exact same thing that Crest, Colgate, or Sensodyne does. But you have Crest, Colgate, and Sensodyne that are name brand toothpaste that are known for doing certain things, right? Oh, of course, fantastic clothes go through the Goodwill, but that's what I was trying to tell you. Fantastic clothes go through the Goodwill. There are some people who will stigmatize you because they seen your mama or your daddy going to the store, to the Goodwill or to the thrift store, whatever, buying your clothes from the Goodwill or from the thrift store, right? And that's because poor people stigmatize being poor while being poor. So even though you're poor and I'm poor, because you're poorer than me, I get to pick on you because you're poorer than me. That mentality is what I don't understand why they do this, but that's what they do, right? The kids, they are harsh with one another. You know, if you're on a free lunch and somebody else can pay for lunch, they're gonna pick on you because you can't afford to pay for your own lunch. You know, when you're bringing your kids to private school and they're on a tuition from the school because you can't afford, you're on financial aid, you can't afford the tuition. The kids in the private school will pick on your kid because your kids got a free ride where their parents had to pay. Your kids wouldn't get picked on in private schools because you can't afford to pay for private school if you took that money and put it towards public school. The prestige of you paying for something that would otherwise be free and use it as a tax deduction is a plus for you instead of you scraping by to try to pay the bare minimum of what they demand from you for the private school's prestige. Your personal prestige is higher in the public school than what your personal prestige would be trying to use the prestige of the private school. But all of this boils down to the magnitude that people don't pay attention to is that if you learn the generational wealth and then you teach that generational wealth to your legacy before they get their hands on your legacy. You can only teach them so much, especially if you die unexpectedly. But if you built it in a way and you created that trust in a way and you put a trustee involved with it so that it can be done a certain way to the fullest extent of what you built, that's what they get. Either most of the donations come from people cleaning out their homes, clothing, dishes, glassware, etc. Yes, some people give it away. Some people sell it for tax deduction. So a lot of the times it's quality stuff. It's not just trash dug up out of the landfills and thrown into the place, but the prestige of the building. That's it. That's all it is. It's the prestige of the building. You can find top quality luxury name brand items in Goodwills and thrift stores and other such places where wealthy people have donated it, middle class people have sold it, and you can go in there and buy it for dirt cheap. $500, $700 outfits being sold for 75 bucks, right? But people look down on people for going to those places and buying stuff. If you give a shit what people care about, if you care what the person next to you is caring about, instead of you buying your clothes on bargain, that's going to be the reason why you got to go to the mall and get it. You got to go to the outlet store and get it. You got to order it directly from the manufacturer and get it brand new, fresh out the bubble wrap. I want my electronics fresh out the bubble wrap, but not so much so. What's your take on leaving your money to the children? Yes or no? Oh, that's what we've been talking about for the last hour. Michael's position is don't leave any money for the kids, spend all the money. And my position is teach them financial responsibility before they're old enough to go to preschool so that they have the ability to spend whatever money you leave for them wisely. My personal observation is that if you're going to be spending your whole adult life building generational wealth for your kids, you might as well teach your kids how to be financially responsible as you build this wealth. Teach them how to manage the system. Teach them how to benefit from doing their own research, learning new things. Teach them how to put their minds towards any government contracts that exist, government grants that exist, anything that you can benefit from so that your money can stretch just that much further. If you pay attention to how your society works, your money will go a whole lot further. And then instead of just waiting for the next paycheck to come out, you would find so much more knowledge that you can utilize to make yourself just that much more money. but that requires you to teach your kids to find another way. And it would be the most beneficial thing for you, because otherwise you're wasting all of your time. You're killing yourself for no reason, so that you can die earlier than what you would have died, because you're wasting all of this time building all of this money so that at a later age, you're going to waste all of the money. Well, why would you do that? Because if you waste all of the money, ultimately, the money is going to disappear before you die, which means that you're going to have a portion of your elder life where you don't have enough money to survive. If the money outlasts you, where you will always have enough money to live the life that you want to live on until you die, whatever's left over goes to your kids, and your kids should be taught how to be financially responsible with whatever's left. Now, I mean, if you're going to be the kind of, you shouldn't even have a legacy if you're going to be the kind of person to say, well, I'm going to throw my money in the air until, donate it to charity. Well, grants.gov is one way to go for it, but there's a lot of other places, because you have USDA grants that helps you with your property repairs. You have all kinds of other government grants that are out there, fixed loans and everything to that effect that are out there that you can benefit from if you know where to look. He said that is the same position that old money takes and keeps money in the family for generations. Notice how I gave you an old money response and Michael gave you no spend it response. He ain't coming from old money. I'm not coming from old money neither, but he doesn't have an old money mentality. Old money is going to teach you, is going to show you how to show somebody else how to get this shit done. And what old money does, the good old boys club, is that the great grandfather teaches the great grandson how to get this shit done. The great grandfather will try to teach them. And this is going to be one of the funny things, because if you're willing to learn, you're likely to be the head of the family. I don't need 100 kids to know how to be financially responsible for them to be a part of the trust. I need the trustee to be the responsible one to handle the trust. So if I didn't want a third-party company managing the trust, I would teach one of my kids, or I would teach one of my grandkids. And I would have it set up in a way where they would handle the estate. I may even have it where the kids, where the oversight from a third party can occur, because you can have an oversight over the trustee to make sure that everything's going the way the contract says it's supposed to go. Right? I can have even a third party handling the trust, and then have a family member oversight potentially to make sure that things go the way they're supposed to go, where you must go to the overseer and have the overseer go to the trustee. You can set up all kinds of stuff. See, and now he's coming from inconceivable situations. I came into the world naked, I'm going out naked, taking my money with me, write me a check. That's actually not true. You might have came into the world naked, but you're leaving out clothes, because they're going, even if they cremate you, they're going to put your body into the cremation with the last outfit you're going to wear. They very rarely cart you anywhere naked after you passed away. Even when they do the closed casket funeral, you're going to be fully clothed in the casket. And then they're going to bury you. So you're leaving out with clothes on, probably not the clothes you would prefer. And your money is not going with you. Who, if you don't have a living relative to collect the money goes to the government. And right now, the government is Donald Trump. So you're probably going to be excited about that. But at the end of the day, by the time you pass, Joe Biden might be back in office. Or Kamala Harris might be the president. And when you pass, your money will be going to her. So they say the odds are most will never get there. Well, no, if they're following your advice, wasting all of their money, yeah, they're never going to get there. They're never going to get there. But ultimately, the one of the things that this show is teaching is first generation wealth building. And first generation wealth building requires you to change the way that you think about things, change the way you do things, change the way you perform for yourself, so that you have an abundance. And if you have an abundance, then you will have a comfortable life in your older years. If you have a comfortable life in your older years, you're likely going to have more money there than what you need, which means when you pass, you will have more money there. And that, if you got nothing else to do with your life, than to come here, young whippersnapper. Let me teach you about stocks. Let me teach you about brokerage. Let me teach you about this. Let me teach you about that. Let me show you about how REITs are built. Let me show you about how companies are made. Let me show you how businesses are hedges. Let me show you what a hostile takeover looks like, where you have 12 companies that you control, invest in one company, and then you are the majority shareholder of each one of those companies, and then you have the majority share of that company. Let me show you how to buy somebody out, right? Let me show you that. Now, the kid learns how to do it. The kid practices what you preach. The kid masters these things. By the time you pass, that kid can take over your estate and make it just that much better for his legacy. And when that kid, being the second generation leader of your legacy, decides to stretch your legacy further, you'll go from having one person trying to take care of 20 or 30 people to having 12 people trying to take care of 500, like the Rockefellers. And the only reason why the Rockefellers is one of the only big names that you could think about with generational wealth is because that was one of the first families that was like, we're not going to fuck up the money. So that we don't have to work hard, we're not going to fuck up the money. So that my grandkids don't have to work hard the way I didn't have to work hard, we're not going to fuck up the money this generation so that the next generation can live just as good as we did. Right? The hardcore new money usually does not want their kids' life to be really easy. No, everybody else, like Michael, is like, oh, my kids gotta suffer the way I suffered. They've got to get it from their bootstraps. And I'm just sitting over here like, why, dude? Why? So in my generation, my parents and my grandparents wanted us to have more and do better than what they did. But there are a lot of parents out there, a lot of adults out there right now. It's like, no, fuck it. Make them suffer. Make them earn it. Make them build themselves up from the ground up. Then what are you doing with your life? If you're building a legacy to leave to them that they can't have until after they've made themselves successful to the magnitude where your legacy is irrelevant, I mean, you're going to build a trust. You're going to build an estate. You're going to leave it to somebody who can only look at it but can't touch it. They're never going to be sustained. That makes absolutely no sense. Or worse, you're going to build all of this money so that you can throw it around like Rick Ross and $100,000 in one night so that in your 70s and 80s that you can say that you wasted X number of dollars in a lifetime and then die. To me, I think that the latter is a ridiculous idea, specifically because if you are alive and you're spending your estate, you are reducing the quantity of money that's left until you die. You can't guarantee when you're going to die unless you're going to take your own life. You can't guarantee when you're going to die. So at 71, Michael might live another 20 years. And if he's only got enough money to last him 10 because he expected himself to only last another 10 years and make it to 82, from 82 to 95, he would have a hard way to go. I agree with you that if you take one for the team to make sure that the team is going to win, it makes a lot of sense. And that is the utilitarian method, is to take one for the team, to sacrifice a few for the many. So if I'm going to scrape and drag and struggle to get to that millionaire status, that multi-millionaire status, and then I'm going to, everything that I went through in life, everything that my parents went through in life, everything my grandparents went through in life is knowledge that I'm going to build in and trust to prevent my kids from experiencing it, to prevent my grandkids from experiencing it. But not everybody's going to benefit from the trust, because when you build this, just like a living will, just like any type of estate building, you're going to have certain people that's cut out of the royalties. Well, you're an asshole. You're not trying to cooperate with the system. You're not going to be part of the system at the end of the day. So everybody else is going to have a life of luxury that they don't have to struggle with because they're following the instructions. You who don't want to follow instructions get nothing. You can live the hard life and let everybody else live the easy life. You can live with resentment, but had you followed instructions, you would not be living in resentment. And it's fine. That's fine. There are plenty of family members that get cut off from the inheritance. But the only way to do it is for the first generation to set the ground rules for the second, third, and fifth generation. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of times you'll see a really detailed trust costing like $2,500 to create. Because every possible thing that you could think of that could have been done with this trust was written down in detail and then handed off to a third person who will operate everything that is attached to this. And then whoever wants a piece of this got to call that person. So the first generation always requires a tough character to pull it off. Yeah. Yes. You have to have a good financial mindset. You have to hit it big on a good financial deal. You have to strike it something somewhere and have the financial knowledge to not waste that big paycheck, which is why I always go on those people with prom, because as soon as you get a large quantity of money that you wasn't expecting, if you put it in the right spot, that money will always be there, and then you can build from there. But if you don't do that, that's when you're in a position where you're kind of, you're going to get a big check and then you're going to waste it. When people ask me, I think Sterling had asked me on either Sunday of last week or Monday of last week, he asked me, well, why do I think that the people actually got the exactly $30,000? That's a pretty specific number. And I was telling them, well, the tax credit capped out at $25,000 worth of overtime, and anybody with children had, I do believe, $2,500 to $5,000 a kid. So if they had at least one or two kids, they were guaranteed to get about that $5,000. And if they had the $25,000 from the overtime hours, they would have around about 30 grand. So each parent that had a kid going to prom had something close to 30 grand that they wasted on that prom situation. And that 30 grand is more money in 1 year than what they probably made the year before. And if they're on a $60,000 a year income or a $55,000 a year income, and that 30 grand that they got in the tax refund was half the year's income, and they wasted it on their kid's prom, that's fucking financially irresponsible. So I always take shots at it. I always take shots. He says a good example is the Kennedy clan. Kennedys, that's another good generation. So outside of the Rockefellers, you got the Kennedys, but the Kennedys is a multi-generational wealth. And how long did that last? You know, you find that a lot of this generational wealth ends up being generational politicians, because you built the plan of financial success, and now you have big money, and now you can do big money moves, and now you can have big money political moves. You can have influences in certain areas where your money is making money for you in ways where you no longer have to suffer, but you also have the ability to influence other people to do what you want them to do. Which ultimately, you're only influencing people that are going to do the things that puts more money in your pocket. Because it's not about prestige. It's not about being popular. It's not about being seen and being known. Because when you're fucking rich, everybody's following you with a camera anyway, trying to get in your fucking business. You can sell the right to talk to you when you're rich, because so many people want to do it. Right? So at the end of the day, it's like, well, I don't really want to talk to you, but if you're going to pay me to talk to me, I'll give you 30 minutes for a certain quantity of money, and we'll sit here and do a press conference. But that happens when you have something of value that people want to talk to you about. When you ain't shit, you can't pay Fox to come and take an interview of you. You can't pay CNN to put you on TV for 15 seconds. Unless you're at a murder scene and you're one of the witnesses, you can't get ABC or NBC to put you on. You know what I mean? Because you're a nobody. But when you're a somebody, you're probably 60% shareholder of the fucking news industry. Right? Well, that's truthfully the way things go. Many people get rich, but the second and third generation usually lose all the money. Yes. And one of the things that you can do to prevent that is to build the type of brokerage account, because you're not going to be able to eliminate it 100% of the way. You build the type of brokerage account where the largest majority of the money, probably 50 to 75% of the money, gets reinvested back into the brokerage account to continue building the wealth. Then whatever's left out of that gets distributed to the beneficiaries. And if you were to have, like I was telling Michael, certain properties all over the place that were being paid for by the trust, you would have maybe 50% going into the trust, 30% paying for all the properties, and then whatever's left would go to the beneficiaries. Now you might have 10, $15 million and each person's only getting 20 grand, depending on how many people are involved, right? You have the ability to have discretionary distributions for beneficiaries, and then you have probably lower level distributions for successor beneficiaries. You can limit it so that the successor beneficiaries must be of the age of, say, 25, 30, fresh out of college kind of shit, so that you can't have the parent and 3 kids getting more money in one household than a single person with no kids from the same legacy, right? To make sure that the money is stretched. You have to take into consideration when you're building this that the people who are going to come behind you who wasn't taught responsibility are going to be irresponsible about it, which means that you're going to have strict guidelines as to how it's going to work, how they're going to get their share, when the cuts are going to be dispersed, right? Because if they got kids and the kids is an instant paycheck, then all of a sudden they'll have a bunch of kids and be completely irresponsible. 10 baby daddies so that they can get a check from 10 kids. But if you're not distributing money to the kids until the kids are 25, they've got to be responsible. How many kids am I actually going to have? Because I got to take care of these fuckers until they're 25 before the kids start getting a distribution. And they're not going to get back pay from birth. They're just going to start getting distributions after a certain age, which allows for the trust to build itself up before this extra person starts getting capital. But yes, if you don't structure it correctly, a lot of the time, second and third generation wealth sometimes ends up being poor, spending up all the money, and then the fourth generation ends up being poor again, and you have to start over. Right? It says, it's interesting that a lot of rich families do not have a trust to keep the money leaving the family. Well, there are a lot of people that do it a lot of different ways. They have trust accounts in certain situations. They have family estates that are managed by the executive board of the family. They have life insurance policies that are designed to control who gets what, when, where, why. There's a lot of different things are set up in a lot of different ways. I can't say that all wealthy families have trusts. Some of them just have living wills. But the fact is that when they do have living wills and they just give certain things to certain individuals in the family, where you'll get the house, you'll get the cars, you'll get the businesses. Whoever gets the businesses is the person that's supposed to be expected to keep the companies running. And somebody might get a stack of cash with instructions as to how the cash works. So you have living wills, you have estates, transfers, and that's one of the reasons why probate is such a big thing. But then you also have what is starting to become a very, very popular thing that people need to start paying attention to nowadays is the ability to build a trust, which is equivalent to a living will, because you're having the instructions of your estate all the way down to the penny. Who can use the cars, where the cars are going to go, who can use the houses, who all can live in the houses, which ones are rental properties that are going to generate revenue for the trust, and which ones are live-in only, homesteads. All of that stuff is structuralized for your ability to make sure that certain assets that you acquire is preserved for multiple generations, and you can better control that with a trust, and that's one of the reasons why we talk about it. Right now, we did an hour and a half on on the opening. One of the other things we talk about on the show is after we talk about different countries around the world that we invest in on Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we talk about self-development, personal improvement, relationship topics, negotiation, socializations, building your brand, raises, promotions, retirement, severance packages, and then how to build your 20, 30-year plan and why you should be building it, which is what we've been talking about so far. Because as you build your generational wealth, wherever you stop at with your legacy is going to be passed on to the next generation. Any rules and resources that you put in there on how they can add to the same thing, which allows for them to be second generation wealth building for the third and fourth generation. If you're teaching them the right stuff, they can build for your success. You can build for your success and they can build for their success on top of what you built, where they can build for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, where you can ultimately, in some situations, eliminate generational poverty in your family line, right? And that's going to end up going all the way down to who you affiliate with from day-to-day lifestyle. So like I was talking about 30, 40 minutes ago, instead of wasting money on impressing other people, buying their friendship by taking them places on your dollar, buying expensive stuff, giving them expensive gifts, fuck them, do you. If they're going to be a part of your squad, they're going to be a part of your squad, but not because you're paying, because you ain't paying for nobody. You got just enough money to cover yourself. But yourself can be covered nicely, right? You just got to teach your kids how to adjust. Then you teach your kids how to read character. It's probably one of the most effective things that wealthy people teach other wealthy people is how to judge character. If you judge that a person doesn't have the kind of character that benefits your estate, you don't want to have that person around you, and you don't want to have that person's kids around you, because what that adult mindset is typically rubs off onto the kid. And if it's a negative mindset, the kid has a negative mindset. And I don't want your kid with my kid because you fuck up your life. And I don't want your kid to fuck up my kid's life because you don't make good decisions as an adult. Right? Because it sounds like a responsible position to take if you have kids. It's a responsible, you don't have to have kids today to have this type of position. You can have this type of position today because you plan on building the type of legacy that you're going to pass on to somebody else. Because I call them your kids. It doesn't have to be your kids. You can be sterile. You can adopt somebody else's kids. You don't have to go to an adoption agency to adopt somebody else's kid. You can be in your 50s and 60s. You can be in your 70s right now. You can find somebody in their 30s with a good head on their shoulder that's willing to learn. And you can pass your estate on to them. No blood relation. And you can pass your estate on to that person because that person is willing to learn from you. And by learning from you, they inherit your estate. You know, so it's a wise mentality to have for yourself, but it's a wise mentality for society to adopt, where instead of us allowing ourselves to chase wasteful spending and bad habits, where more than 70% of the American population is poor, broke-minded, broke mentality, where only 23% of the population actually knows what the fuck's going on and is trying to do better for themselves. The majority of the population should be the opposite. It should be 70% of the population that's got it together, and 30% or 23% of the population that's not really willing to pay attention. You know, because even wealthy countries like Dubai, where the majority of the people are sustained, there are people that are financial fuck-ups to the magnitude where they got to flee the country because it's a crime to have debt in Dubai. It's that serious over there. So the majority of the population is financially responsible. But there are enough people over there that are financially irresponsible, which is why there's so many supercars lying all over the place. But in order for you to have that supercar, you had to have made the money to be able to buy that supercar, which means you had financial stability at some point. You just didn't do it right for a long enough period of time. America, you don't have the largest majority of the population with supercars. You don't have the largest majority of the population with a regular car that they can rely on, which is why there's so much public transportation all over the place. What we have is a larger quantity of society that's wasteful, because capitalization requires for the top 1% to benefit from the bottom 99%, because the bottom 99% is financially wasteful. So there's no reason to take from the wealthy and give to the poor like Robin Hood, because the poor is going to waste it on the companies that the wealthy own, and it's going to go back into the pockets of the wealthy. So it really requires a bottom-up strategy to teach the poor people how to stop doing stupid shit with their money so that they can stop being poor. And if you teach them to teach the next generation, there goes your poverty problem. Doesn't mean that you're going to get rid of poverty altogether. It just means that you're going to have a larger middle class. You're going to have a lower quantity of poor people. There's still going to be a poverty class because there's going to be people where you can't tell me shit, doing splits during graduation and dropping it like it's hot, like a stripper, and wondering why they won't give you your damn degree. It's shocking when you realize that some of our politicians don't understand any of this or how our economy works, for that matter. Well, you've got one president in the office right now that knows what the fuck's going on. He's a billionaire, but and the last time you had a president that had wise knowledge was Obama. So out of the last five presidents, because you had Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump, four of them knew what the fuck to do. While some people don't like Obama and others don't like Trump, Obama might not be a billionaire, but the man ain't broke. And he didn't have a scandal. Obama, his wife, and all of his kids do not have to worry about where their money's coming from, do not have scandals, and Obama's got daughters. So you don't have no Kardashian scandals with the children, teaching them how to behave, right? And you shouldn't have to only teach your kids how to behave when you're the president. We should have a society that is wrapped around teaching our children legacy responsibility. Don't destroy the family name. Because that's how it works in politics. That's how it works with wealthy people, that you don't embarrass the family name. When we were growing up in the 80s, we had that teaching to us from our ancestors in the 50s and 60s. Don't embarrass us in public, right? Dignity was passed down from generation to generation. Self-respect and self-control was passed down from generation to generation. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be the kind of person in school or my kids are in school, where the school come and tell me some X, Y, and Z, and my first question is, well, did you whoop his ass? Because if you didn't, well, I'll whoop his ass, but you can whoop his ass. I'll sign a waiver. Because I grew up in the legacy of the generation where the neighbors got you, the teacher got you, the principal got you, the clerk at the grocery store got you. If your ass wasn't acting right in society, society got you, because it takes a village to raise a child. You're not with your child 100% of the time. But your child should always know how to behave. And I would, even if I got to draft a contract that you can beat his ass, and if you call me and tell me that you beat his ass, I'm gonna beat his ass when he get home. So you got two ass whoopers, one from the school, one from the disciplinarian, and then one from me. That they gonna get that effort. You ain't gonna act a fool in school. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna act a fool in society. That needs to be the standardization. But what it is right now is that even though it still takes a village to raise a child, now you've got the modern rap music teaching the kids how to be irresponsible. You got the movies and theaters teaching the kids how to be irresponsible. Then the kids is encouraging each other to do radical behavior, because if you're willing to wild out for my entertainment, then oh my God, they did X, Y, and Z. Again, like the girl who did the stripper split and bounced it up and down on the stage. Being able to do that is in your own home, okay. At school, not okay. I don't give a fuck if it's graduation. I don't give a fuck. Oh, it's a graduation celebration. You were not supposed. You could have, did you a Randy Orton pose or some shit. You could have did some simple shit, but you had to drop it like it's hot, like a stripper. You had to look like Nicki Minaj in the Anaconda video. For what? you're still in school and you still have a code of conduct. And when you start breaking that code of conduct, you should be expelled. You can get expelled on graduation day. He said people in Congress that don't understand the economy should not be there, regardless of their politics. But you know what the problem is that the average person only votes in the people in Congress and people in the White House, specifically because of who we know. And then when we don't vote, because we only vote once every 4 years instead of voting every year, because there's something to vote on every year in your city, in your state, and in your country. There's something to vote on every year. This is midterm elections in 2026 for Congress. So if you don't like the way Congress has been behaving over the past 2 years, you can vote out the Congress members in November so that we don't have 2 more government shutdowns over the next 2 years. You know what I'm saying? If you think about how the Democrats were fighting for us to have safer protection from the ICE agents that was killing people in the streets, and you vote out the Republicans that was holding up the decisions when all Congress was being asked was to take off the mask and put on some fucking body cameras so that they can have accountability for their decisions in the streets. Yeah, go get them. Yeah, enforce the warrants and everything to that effect, and just arrest the folks that are stopping you from getting the folks that are not supposed to be here. But you ain't got to beat nobody up and mace them and point guns at them and all this, that, and the other. The Democrats said protect the people. The Democrats were the reason why the riots stopped, not the Republicans. The Republicans were like, get rid of all the immigrants. But at what cost? So people vote people in because they know them. And then if they don't know anybody, they don't vote. If they don't have an opinion either way, they don't vote. And if nobody votes, the people in the process are going to vote. So whoever's chair is up for grabs today is going to have all of their friends vote for them. And if I still get a majority vote, I don't need 380 something million votes. All I need is the majority vote. So if out of millions of Americans, only 1,000 people vote and I get a majority vote, I get to stay. Just like chief of police. You might have 5,000 police officers, 100,000 people in this city. And if the 5,000 police officers are the only ones that votes for that police chief, you could hate the way the police treat you. But instead of you voting in a new chief of police, instead of you voting in a new sheriff, you don't vote. The police will vote for their boss, and their boss gets to stay in position every year. But them fuckers have their job on the line every year, every couple of years, and you don't vote. The same way there's a mayor running every year. You don't vote. You should vote your mayor out because the mayor is over the police. So if the police is treating the civilians like shit, you should vote your mayor out because your mayor is not controlling the police correctly. People don't do that. You don't understand. There's a system here. And since we don't do what we're supposed to do, that's the reason why we don't have what we need. He said, it's true, the village was cruel. Well, it's not just that the village was cruel. The fact is that back in the day, so you say the village was cruel. Back in the day, let's go back. Look, I had to get prepped up for this. Let's go back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s. When you vandalize something, your neighbors might beat your ass. Bring you home, your mom and daddy beat your ass. Before the police come and get you and beat your ass, you done got disciplined by the neighbor that caught you doing it. 5 or 7 of your family members, don't do that. Before the police involved, your family is paying restitution to the other family, so you don't got to go to jail. You don't got to get a criminal record. They're fixing the problem on your behalf, and then you got to reimburse your family and keeping it a societal inside job so that this shit doesn't continue to happen anymore, so that you learn that when you out on the street, you can't act up. Now, parents don't tell their kids nothing. The kids is fighting a teacher in the street. The kids is fighting a teacher in the classroom. The kids is shooting one another with Glock switches. The kids is fighting all over the place and almost getting hit by cars and everything to that effect because nobody's holding them responsible. The village wasn't cruel. The village was disciplining the children so that when we had teenagers, we didn't have bricks thrown through windows and mailbox smashes and people got flaming poop on their porch and stuff. when you start teaching your kids responsibility and teaching your kids responsibility to the magnitude that the neighbors know. So if my kid was out there messing with your kids and your kids fucked up and you beat your kid's ass, you should have beat his ass too. If they were all together when it happened, you beat his ass too. I think if somebody else's parent came to my house with their kid and my kid and told me that those two kids was involved in something together, my first question would be, well, what was your response with consequences for your kid? Because whatever you do, I'm gonna do more. You beat his ass, all right. So you get an ass whooping too. Y'all not free. He said, now the village idiots are raising the children. But that's the product of the lack of responsibility. That's the product of the lack of responsibility. The only reason why you have so many village idiots that are able to raise the children now is because society no longer takes responsibility for its legacy. Each person has their own right to autonomy. Each person has their own right to do this, that, and the third, but nobody has the responsibility to tackle keeping the kids in line. And they're ultimately, a lot of the village idiots are going to be the children that are teaching the other children to be irresponsible, because none of the children got parents at home to teach them nothing because the parents is working 2 jobs. You might have a 2-parent household where both parents got 2 jobs or 3 jobs between the 2 adults, where one person's working 10 hours a day and the other person's working 2 8-hour jobs. They get home just enough time to make sure that the kids are still alive, but not enough time to teach the kids nothing. So then when the kids, they're not causing ruckus in the house, they're not costing too much money in the house, they leave the house and they learn how to live life outside of the house. And they live in a neighborhood where their friends encourage them to do radical stuff. And they do it because it's funny. I'm going to tell you right now, any action or behavior that you perform that makes somebody else laugh is a bad decision. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. Do donuts in the street. And then when you do the donuts in the street and you crash into somebody else's car and everybody's laughing, that was a bad decision. Oh, steal that bottle of alcohol. And then you get caught and everybody's laughing. It's a bad decision. Doing splits at graduation and dropping it like it's hot. Notice all the girls was wilding out over that situation. That was a bad decision. A good decision does not get a standing ovation. I'm going to tell you that again. A good decision does not get you a standing ovation. You get a standing ovation because society right now, Western culture society right now, encourages negative decisions. So you will get a standing ovation for doing something irresponsible before you get a standing ovation for doing something positive. Doing something positive is boring. Doing something positive, nobody wants to look at that. Doing something positive, nobody's going to pull out their cell phone and record that. So if you're performing a behavior where everybody's going to whip out their cell phone and record this, that's because that's an irresponsible decision. I can't believe you're fucking your life up like that. Let me get it on recording. That's what they're doing, right? So my best advice to the current generation right now, think about what you're about to do. And if everybody around you that's watching this shit is pulling out their cell phones, you're about to do something that's fucking stupid and you should probably rethink your position and withdraw. Because if everybody around you is about to record what you're about to do, then everybody around you recognizes that this is going to be good clickbait for social media, but it's a bad fucking decision. Okay? Because if this was a good decision, then nobody would be recording it because it's boring, it's normal, it's every day. When does somebody come in and say, "Ooh, look, he's reading his book in silence in the library without causing a problem. Ooh, look, he's eating his food in the cafeteria, not causing a problem. Ooh, look, he's having a positive conversation with the police officer, signing his ticket and going on his way with no problem." Nobody records that shit. But let the cop start violating your rights. Bad decisions, let me record that. Let the kid start making noise in the library. Bad decisions, let me record that. Let the kid flipping plates in the cafeteria. Oh, let me record that. Food fights in the cafeteria. Let me record that. The student causing a disruption in the classroom. Let me record that. Kid dropping it like it's hot in the prom. Let me record that. Parents wasting money on prom. Let me record that. Because it is bad decisions. So you can rationalize it for yourself. Is this a good decision or not, depending on how many people standing around me whipping out a camera to record what I'm about to do next. Yes, I agree with you. In the old days, the system worked much better. The kids had more support. But not only did the kids have more support, the kids had more responsibility. I remember when I was younger, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Lawn care job, lemonade stands, washing windows, sweeping parking lots, washing cars, find something to do that make money for myself so that I could turn around and use that money to buy the things that I wanted that my mom and them didn't want to buy or couldn't afford to buy. So I was able to value certain things, like Michael said, where you teach the children the value in their shit, because they're not going to break their shit if in the event they have to pay to get it, and then they got to pay to replace it. When you hand stuff to kids, they have no value in it. They'll break it. Oh, I don't like it. I don't want it. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, it ain't the Tesla with the suicide doors or whatever. Fuck, you want that bit? Go buy it yourself. When they see how hard it is to get one, when they do get one, they're going to take good care of it. Right? And I do agree with Michael on that logic that the when you teach the children the value of achieving, they will cherish it more than simply receiving without effort. We got to put a lot more of that into the women that we have in Western culture, because if we teach the women that you got to earn it, then those women would probably appreciate these relationships a lot more instead of taking advantage of them and walking away and looking for another one. But as long as they believe that they're entitled to it simply because they're breathing, they're never going to earn it. And if you start making them try to earn it, they're going to devalue you for giving them responsibility. And ultimately, you're going to end up either in a relationship that you're not happy with, or you're going to end up renting her, which is like escorts, prostitution, everything to that effect, calling it a relationship. And it's not going to last because it's a relationship of convenience, and you're going to find yourself disappointed. She's going to be disappointed in you. You're going to be disappointed in her because she got in it with entitlement, not reciprocation. She's not working to build something. You're not working to build anything because you're in it for the sex. So the two of you came in there for the wrong reasons, and your relationship is going to fail. Then you're going to get into your middle ages. You're going to fly to the Philippines. You're going to go get somebody over there that's going to work with you. You're going to be like, well, I didn't do this a long time ago, because you couldn't fucking afford it. You couldn't afford the 20-something grand it cost to go over there, find the right person, and fly him back over here, and then have an extra mouth to feed. So it sounds like modern women became the spoiled and lazy kids. Well, yes and no. Okay, so society, men as well as adults, have all, I'm gonna leave this up here, have all contributed to the laziness of the Western culture women. Because if she's attractive, we're going to buy her nice things. We're going to get her gifts. We'll give her a little bit of money. We'll pay her way. We will offer ourselves, well, not ourselves, our resources to the women. And one of the reasons why men do this in modern times is because it is a more appropriate way to notify that you're sexually attracted to the woman. You want to sleep with her. So I'll buy you nice things. I will cover your costs when you go places. And women, the age that women start receiving this is the age that her mental growth stops. She stops being self-sufficient when she is being catered for. So the younger she was when society started paying her way, the dumber she is as an adult. The older she is when society starts paying her way, the more responsible she is as an adult. Because if she's got to get it the way the boys had to get it until she was 25, she's not going to be irresponsible. But if she was catered to since she was 14, because every old dude with a bad decision wanted to sleep with the girl since she was 14, she could have been overdeveloped or whatever the fuck was going on. That child is not going to have the same lifestyle. Everything being handed to her, she's never had to earn it. And if she never had to earn it, she doesn't know why she has to put in effort to get anything, because all she has to do is walk up and she gets it because she's cute. So now what she's going to do is, the older she gets, she's going to put more money and more effort into staying cute. More money in the makeup in order to keep herself looking younger, more money with the hair to keep her hair looking the way guys would like her to look. And she's going to lie and say that she's doing it for herself, but she's doing it to keep herself socially attractive. So that the older she gets, 25, 30, 40 years old, no matter how many kids she has, that she's still attractive to somebody who is still going to, in the friend zone, pay for her ability to sustain her standard of living. So even if she does have to go out and get a job, she might have 4 or 5 different guys that'll be handing her a few $100s here and there for each guy, with absolutely no responsibility for reciprocation. She might have 1 or 2 guys babysitting her kids with absolutely no reciprocation for babysitting costs. She will have all kinds of things going on, because society, which is a lot of the times the men's fault that they condone this type of behavior, then those women are going to be the example to other women that are growing up in that type of society, watching the older women get kept by the older men. And then the younger women are going to get kept by the older men. Then the younger women are going to teach. So now you got 3 generations of it. And you ultimately find that the women don't see, well, what the fuck was I supposed to do? Because my mama and them didn't have to do nothing. My grandmama and them didn't have to do nothing. I didn't have to do nothing. So what are you talking about? But then when they turn 40, 50, 60 years old, the society turns their back on her, and no longer are they appealing by them. Then the women are, oh, why is life so hard at 35, 40, 45 years old? When you got to get it the way the men get it, because nobody gives a fuck what you look like now. Now you have to show your worth. But your mental state stopped once people started spoiling you. And then when your mental state has to kick up, people stop spoiling you. So yeah, I would say that women are going to be lazy kids, but there's some men that are out there that are irresponsible too, because you have the men that are spoiled by their mothers. And I'm going to say it like that because a lot of 82% of broken homes are the women are raising children. So the children, the boys that grow up irresponsible, are growing up irresponsible because of their upbringing, and that upbringing is going to be because of mom. So in that dynamic, you're looking at the men that were not given responsibility are going to grow up irresponsibly because they weren't taught how to do it for themselves. Everything was handed to them. So you're going to have both lazy and irresponsible adult women, and you're going to have lazy and irresponsible adult men, but you're more often than not going to have the lazy and irresponsible adult men in situations where the mama had it to spoil the child. When the mama didn't have it and the boy had to get out there and earn it and help bring up the rear and help mama make ends meet, that guy is going to forever be the go get the money and spend it on mama kind of guy. They call them mama's boys. And that guy's going to transition that behavior to getting all the money and bringing it to his girl. The girls are still going to be spoiled. There's going to be very few women that are going to, in comparison to men, that are going to be that I'm going to go out there and fix the car and build this and do that and do the only child, daddy's little girl kind of situation. He taught her everything because he had no sons. That girl's going to be more responsible than a lot of the men. But for every other dynamic, you're going to have more often than not the guys that are going to go out there and go get it. And then the girls are going to sit there and wait for it. He says, how do you reverse this trend? Or is it even possible? It is possible to reverse a trend. This podcast is going to reverse a trend. The more families that it reaches, the more people are going to change. Because at the end of the day, you have to teach all the children. You have to teach the adults responsibility. So the majority of the channel's traffic right now is people over the age of 30, which are middle-aged people that have already been through fucking up their life. So you already know what I'm telling you is true. So while some people are going to be offended by what I'm saying, and some people are going to be like, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. The fact is, you've already been through it, or you've seen somebody go through it. And now when I'm telling you, hey, we shouldn't have went through this, we should have been taught better, but since we weren't, I'm going to teach you. Those are going to be the people with the open minds that are going to listen and learn. Mentorship is across and now, not just down. So you teach everybody on your level how to behave better. We all become the first generation of responsible adults to teach the next generation. Not everybody's going to want to listen, but the ones that do listen, that's who we pass our estate to. Those kids are going to know what the fuck to do. They're going to teach whoever wants to listen. And whoever doesn't want to listen is cut out of the estate. It's just like in the Bible when he told his 12 disciples to take your knowledge and go out and go and teach it to other people, not bring them here and build a congregation over here for us to call it a church and teach everybody here. No, you go out and spread the word as far out as you can go, to whoever wants to know, right? So whoever doesn't want to know, fuck them. But whoever wants to know, teach them everything you know because you learned everything you know from me. And that's going to be how we're going to have to do it, is that I'm going to teach everybody who wants to know from me. And then they're going to teach everybody who's willing to listen to them. And then we will develop the type of society where men and women alike will have that responsibility. Because there were Rockefeller women that were responsible. There were Kennedy women that were responsible. There were second and third generation wealth that was responsible. Donald Trump's wife is a $50 million woman, and she didn't get that from divorce. She might have inherited that from her family, but she didn't waste it at the end of the day. So there are women that are financially successful. There are women that are wise with their shit, but there are more men and women alike that are irresponsible about their shit. Women are irresponsible more so because society teaches them to be irresponsible, and men are irresponsible because they're more often spoiled by their mothers to be irresponsible. Out of a family of 3 kids, you usually find that one of the children is the favorite, and the child that is the favorite is the less responsible one, because that's the one that everything is handed to. The child that's the black sheep, the most responsible, the one that wasn't given shit, the one that had to get out there and get it for themselves. The one that was ignored, probably the most self-sufficient, but less responsible than the black sheep. So you can find in every family, and you can have a 2-parent household. Every family is going to have that. Because in a 2-parent household, you're going to have mom's going to have one favorite child, dad's going to have one favorite child. So you got two favorites that got spoiled at least by one of the parents. And if you got a third child, that child was ignored by both parents. And that child's probably going to be the most responsible one out of all the kids. And a lot of the times you might find that one being the most destructive because they're being ignored. But more often than not, that's going to be the most responsible, the most capable one. The one that's able to get himself into more shit and get himself out of that shit, right? But the ones that were spoiled, the ones that were kept, those are the ones that get themselves into shit. Mommy, daddy, help me, right? Because they were never taught to be self-sufficient. They were never taught to be responsible. They were never taught to do the right thing and make the right choices. And the wealthier you get, the easier it is for you to tell your kids, don't worry, I'll fix it. Fuck that. I will never tell my kids, don't worry, I'll fix that. You're good. We will figure this out together, but I'm not fixing anything that was an intentional stupid decision. You're gonna have to take some of this shit, right? Take your car and take your credit cards and take your phone. It doesn't really teach you shit. It doesn't teach you nothing. I can try to keep you off of probation. I can keep this out of the public record, but you're gonna be a servant to that guy until he says stop. You're gonna have to do restitution to this company until they tell you to stop. You're gonna be a free intern for them until they tell you to stop. So whatever they got you doing, scrubbing toilets, whatever the case may be, until they tell you to stop. Because that is going to be the only way that you're going to teach the legacy how to sustain itself and not fuck up the world. You understand? So when you ask me, well, how do we reverse the trends, or is this even possible? Yes, it is. But one of the first things we got to do as a society is we have to, first generation, stop playing into the propaganda. We have to stop dancing on inappropriate behavior on social media, inappropriate behavior in society, and start thinking before we take action. A lot of the times there's preemptive decisions that can be made. You have to think about what you're about to do and then think about the consequences of what you're about to do. That's one of the fundamental easiest ways to survive in society. Because first and foremost, if you know that what you're about to do is wrong, you know what the consequences could be. You could be not paying your child support, knowing they're going to suspend your license. These days, they're going to suspend your passport. So if you want to fly out of the country and you have back child support, and now they're taking people's passports away, you might make it out of the country with that passport, but your ass ain't coming back with that motherfucker. You're kind of fucked because your passport got pulled. And if your passport got pulled, if you were on a long vacation and they decide to deport you because your passport ain't good no more, whatever kind of vacation you thought you was going to have, that got disrupted. If you're dealing with driving on a suspended license, DUIs, riding with improper anything, you're taking chances. If you're riding motorcycles, lane splitting, knowing that just because the law says that you're allowed to do it, you're going to be zipping through cars and you're going to get flipped by a car that you wasn't paying attention to because you're driving faster than your reaction time. Stupid is what stupid does. Oh, just because illegal doesn't make it right. The fact is, we have to learn to make the kind of decisions that prevents us from being in bad spots. And if we don't prevent ourselves from being in bad spots, we're going to end up with bad spots. And then we got to just take that hit. Is the marketing media somehow responsible for this situation by promoting the wrong image of success? That's a good question. Whew, I'm gonna have to save. I'm gonna have to save tonight's comment list for next week because these are a lot of good questions. So, is the marketing media somehow responsible for this situation by promoting the wrong image of success? Marketing is not promoting the wrong image of success. Social media highlight reels are promoting the wrong image of success. A man or a woman walking through a garage or a parking lot full of expensive cars, swearing up and down that this could be your life if you buy their product. That's the wrong image. A man or woman in a successful suit walking through an office on the 40th or 50th floor with a view over New York or Hong Kong or Taipei or Russia or California, or you're standing on a balcony over a horizon pool off the cliff of Hollywood Square, and saying, oh, well, you can live the life that I live. That is giving off the wrong image. Music videos that have a good beat, sometimes terrible lyrics, and I'm going to say terrible lyrics not because the lyrics doesn't have rhymes and had coups and double entendres and everything, but because it's terrible lyrics from the dynamic of it's delivering a negative message. Chase money, waste money on girls. Girls give themselves away for the rich guys. Waste as much money as you have. Don't take care of your bills. The women are prioritizing only getting men willing to spend all their money on the woman. Buy expensive stuff. Buy expensive alcohol. Name brand. But nowhere in there does a rap song say be responsible about your shit. But the kids will take that stuff. They will listen to it. They will embody that subconsciously, and then they'll start making decisions like every rapper or majority of them are smoking weed. So now the kids are going to go buy weed and smoke it so that they can be like their favorite rapper. They're going to buy name brand clothes so that they can look like their favorite rapper. They're going to carry themselves and dress certain ways so that they can emulate their idol. That's what they do. The women are going to do the same thing, right? But it's not just marketing, because marketing is going to say, well, poor people like exclusivity to make them feel special. So what you're going to do is we're going to create a product, have a limited edition. We're going to put it out, make it hard to come by. We're going to sell it for a high price because everybody's going to want it. We're going to promote it long before it happens to make everybody flock over and come and get some. Now, marketing isn't giving the wrong image, but if you look at 15, 20, 75, 200 different TikTok channels, Instagram channels, YouTube channels, where the couples are having good times, playing pranks on one another, having fun with one another, looking like their home is a beautiful home where they're only in one room, probably the best room in the house, either a big living room or a really clean kitchen. And then they do a social media post and you think, oh, they have such a loving relationship, highlight reels. That gives off the wrong image, because it's probably a 1 to 5 minute video that was then edited for an hour to 2 hours and put up on social media where everybody's like, oh, but that's 1 to 5 minutes out of 24 hours. everything after that that's not recorded. The kids bouncing off the walls, the police coming to the door because one of the kids did something to somebody else's kids, the affairs, the fights, none of that stuff is on there. They're not doing 24/7 live streams about their life. They're doing highlight reels when we're getting along. At least once a week, let's put up a video so that we can make money. And that actually, I was going to be covering that on the show soon about how couples can actually monetize their relationships. But social media is giving off wrong images of success, which is where the prom idea came from, because the 30 and 40-year-old adults, sometimes 50-year-old adults, all grew up in a legacy generation where we were taught through music videos and movies that luxury was spending a lot of money and buying a bunch of expensive shit. And every movie that you see and music video of a poor person coming across a large quantity of money, they blow it. For example, remember that movie where Queen Latifah thought she was dying? She came across a large quantity of money. She was out there living like a boss. Remember Adam Sandler? I forgot the name of the movie that he was in. It was either Adam Sandler or I can't remember your boy from Cable Guy, but Ace Ventura. He came across a large quantity of money. That was one of those comedy ones, and they were blowing, right? I can't remember the other guys that were doing it, but there was another comedy show where they were blowing, where they inherited a bunch of money. Some people find a bunch of money. Some people get a lottery ticket. Look at what happened with Friday, the movie Friday After Next. They didn't have enough money to pay the taxes on the property because they blew all the money. You know what I mean? There's never a dynamic where they say, oh shit, outside of, I think Breaking Bad was probably the only one, but that was illegal money. That actually showed you how to build an empire off of collecting a large quantity of assets. There's never a dynamic where we're taught to say, hey, if you get more money than you need, take the extra money and put it somewhere where that money is making more money for you. If you got more money, you can leverage that money to go and invest in something that's going to give you more money. You only see that in the drug game. You only see that on the drug movies. You get a small quantity of drugs, you sell it to the people, then you go to the supplier, you invest in a company by having a supplier front you some more product, you flip the product, you bring back extra money, and now you double down on your product. Every drug movie shows you how to build a legitimate business by getting a product and taking your profit and doubling down on more product and continuing to do that until you have more product than you have people to sell the product. And then you got to get a bunch of employees to sell the product so that you have more product being sold. Now all you're doing is large scale transactions where you're getting more product for your employees to sell, and you're doing one thing and they're doing a million things, scaling it up to a big time situation where a lot of the times you're not paying your employees enough, which is the economic business model. Somebody gets greedy, they snitch, and then the feds come and tear the whole situation down. That's how it always is. They show in the drug game, they show when two companies collide, a competition where they're killing each other on a street corner for the ability to sell in that corner, robbing each other for the product. You're dealing with hostile takeovers where they take out the competitors' leaders and now you take over their turf. They show you this stuff from a criminalized perspective, but they don't show it to you on a Wall Street perspective. They don't show it to you where one bank bought another bank out. They might show you in like K-pop movies where one person marries another person's family member so that you can take over the business. But you don't see that in American culture. You see that, well, you know, Casino Royale, we're going to rob a bank and get a bunch of money and then blow it. That's it. So is it marketing, media that is responsible for the situation that we're in? No. I mean, television is responsible for a lot of it. Music videos are responsible for a lot of it. I can't even blame the video games. I grew up on video games, and here I am telling y'all about how to make, save, and invest money. I watched all the movies that I'm telling you that gives off the wrong image. But I also did a lot of research, and I've also had a lot of mentors when I spent 8 years in college that I stumbled across, where they were delivering little tidbits of information, not a large legacy of knowledge, little tidbits of information where I wanted to know more, but they didn't want to give it to me unless I paid extra money to get it. So I always knew for 8 years that there was more knowledge to being successful than what the mentors was willing to disperse. Seminars that invite you to a local hotel for you to sit there all afternoon, for them to convince you to take the weekend retreat at your financial expense, 3 days at your cost for them, right? So that they can give you the rest of the information, but they never give you the rest of the information. They have you go on the retreat, you stay out there kumbayaing it up, spending a bunch of money, and then they're going to get you to join a membership, where whatever intellectual property that they're going to release you access to on a limited basis might be a database to the information that they were mentioning, but not the actual method to step by step make yourself successful. So recognizing it, experiencing it a lot of the times without actually having to go to all of these damn retreats. I hear from the people who come from the retreats, and the fact of the matter is that there is extra knowledge out there. I started researching that extra knowledge 3 years ago, and I'm like, shit, which right now, that would have made me like 37 when I'm researching this information, which makes me, at that time, I would have been like 1 year older than Steven when I started looking into this information. And then I started finding, oh shit, this is here, this is here, this is here. And I didn't know that. And then when I started learning it, now I'm in my 40s and I'm teaching y'all on this podcast stuff that I just found out 3 years ago, where had I had wise men telling me this when I was 27, I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in at 41. So from 27 to 31, if I would have been getting taught the same stuff that I learned from 37 to 41, I would be more financially successful right now. But it was just the adults in my area that didn't want to tell me. Some of them didn't know. They had their prestigious position, professor, dean, whatever. But, some of them fraternity leaders, but their prestigious position had limitations. They did not have any knowledge more than how to keep their business afloat, right? They didn't know how to make generational wealth. They just know how not to be broke, how not to live from paycheck to paycheck. At least to live enough where even if they are living from paycheck to paycheck, they had the free time to go and hang out with the students and show the students that you can have a life where you don't work like a slave your whole life. It's a good point. They teach the poorer people that if they get any windfall, to blow it on brand name products. Yes, that is exactly what happens. And it's not marketing. Marketing is going to help them spend the money. What is teaching them how to spend whatever windfall they get on products is going to be movies, social media, peer pressure, music videos, but it's not going to be the companies that are marketing things, because the Bugatti for rent and the private jet for rent and the private mansion for rent. You want to have a mansion party because every coming of age high school party or every coming of age college frat party has them doing a end of the year mansion party. You find a mansion for rent. Marketing didn't get you to spend $2,000 to rent this place for one night with a $10,000 security deposit. You want it to be like Blue Mountain State. If you've seen Blue Mountain State, you know what I'm talking about. And at the end of that, you realize, oh yeah, you recreated that movie, but you wasted a whole bunch of fucking money to do it. You might be the person to talk about for 2 or 3 weeks because you spent $12,000 for everybody else to come in and have a free party in a mansion, right? You might be the popular person on campus for a semester. Everybody asks you, when's the next party, so that they can show up and get another free party, but you're spending $12,000 a semester to impress other people. But nobody taught that person. You could have put that $12,000 somewhere else where you would have been talking to Bill Gates and Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all of the other guys from Shark Tank and all of the other guys from the startup thing and everything like that, where rich people will be rubbing elbows with you like, hey, you know, I got a financial project, and since you got a little extra money on the side, maybe you can invest in my project and we can all make money together. You will never get into that room where you're sitting around a table with a bunch of people with more money than you talking about investing in a project that you have enough money to invest in, where the hardest part is writing the fucking check. You spend the whole afternoon talking to these people about what it is, how it's going to operate, where the money's going to come from, where it's going to go, how much of it you're going to get, how long it's going to take for you to get it. Read the contracts, talk to your lawyers, sign everything up. Your whole day was talking and signing papers. Right? No mental stress. You're not frustrated. You're not arguing. You're deciding whether or not I'm going to put my money on this or not. You know? I said, remember that slogan, image is everything? Today I say, no, it's not. Well, I'm going to say it is, but how you get the image and what image you're trying to project is going to be everything. Because, okay, think about this. Image is everything. Clothes doesn't make the man makes the clothes. But if you're a nobody and you want to be perceived as a somebody by pretending, you can put on the clothes that you think will get you accepted in the room. And the problem is the image that you will be giving off is a desperate person wanting to be seen. The image is everything. If you're a person of confidence, you don't care if people respect you. You demand respect, because when you walk in the room, you have the knowledge and you have the confidence to back that knowledge, to know what you're talking about. You can talk to somebody about something that you don't know anything about, and you have the confidence to recognize that you don't know what's going on. You're going to ask the right questions to gain the knowledge necessary to determine if you're going to invest in that or not. You are not trying to impress everybody. So the difference between a man walking into a room with all name brand clothes, where you've got the logos branded on the outside of the outfit, branded on the outside of the pants, branded on the outside of the shoes, where they can see that you bought an entire, you know, a Gucci outfit or an entire Louis Vuitton outfit. You are screaming poverty when you do that. But you can have a man that's got a black on black suit, black belt, black shoes. They don't have to be name brand, but they could be. Nobody could know because there's no brands anywhere. Can't tell what it is unless you own the company that made it. You're discreet. You walk up, you're talking to everybody about the money. You're talking to everybody about the investments. You're talking to everybody about the different trade deals. You're doing research on the guest list before you showed up. So when you walk up, you know who's going to be here. You know who they represent. You know what's likely going to be the normal conversation. So when they start getting into their personal lives, you're going to listen and not try to one up them. And then you're going to find yourself in a position where you're going to get more respect. The image you give off there is, I belong here. So if you got you a pair of blue jeans, some Levi's blue jeans, the dark blue jeans, right? Those were the nice ones next to the Wranglers, right? And then you throw on like a Nike outfit with some Jordans. Walk into a cocktail party. It ain't gonna turn your ass around. You already know. As soon as I said cocktail party, you imagine black and white suits and white ball gowns. That you immediately went to that as soon as I said cocktail party. But if you would have walked into that room with an all black suit, or you could have walked into that room with a black button down shirt, black undershirt, black pants, and a white blazer with some black shoes on. You could have even did the Michael Jackson version and had some white socks on it. You still would have walked into that room almost resembling James Bond, talking to everybody about what it takes to be successful. You're not trying to one up everybody. You're passing knowledge along and obtaining knowledge. You'll be rubbing elbows with individuals that will have ideas. They will invite you to other events. If you've got the money, the time, and the transportation to get there, you will find yourself in a room where other people with wealth will be talking about wealth, and you can try to get your hands on some wealth. Image is everything. But one of the problems is that a lot of people these days believe that image is not everything. And that's the reason why they can degrade and devalue themselves on social media. That's the reason why they can degrade and devalue themselves at high school graduation. And I'm going to keep going in on them, because them kids, whether it was the boys or the girls that was out there inappropriately dancing after they got off the stage thinking that, oh, I'm not going to get in trouble for this. But your inappropriate behavior went viral. The girl that did the stripper move on the stage before she got her degree, your behavior went viral. If you apply for college, that behavior is not condoned. They may pull your application. You might have got accepted into college, but then when they saw what you did on stage, they declined your acceptance into college. If you applied for a job, they run your name. Your name is on social media with doing something inappropriate in a public place that was supposed to be prestigious, elegant, cordial, and you was wilding out like barroom women and project men. And that is going to cause big business to say, we don't affiliate with low-class behavior. You won't get that job. You will find it hard until them videos disappear off the internet. You will find it hard to take the next step, because less people are going to accept you. When you apply for scholarships, when you apply for grants, and the grant or the scholarship that offers that funding does a background check on the applicants, they might tell you no, even though you qualify, because you got a very shitty behavior pattern. You got poor decision-making skills, right? The fact is, image is everything, but the average person doesn't amount to enough for their image to reflect in their own personal life how important it is. But if you take your ass to Asia, your image is your currency. So you can fuck up your reputation in America and people will still do business with you. But if you fucked up your reputation in Asia, you wouldn't be able to do business over there. Because I agree, if you are selling yourself to an employer or a client, image is everything. Well, okay, so you call it selling yourself to an employer or a client. Selling yourself to an employee or a client from that dynamic, trying to paint the picture that your identity is for sale, or you're only going to behave this way for a certain price, is the wrong way to look at it. In order for you to climb the corporate ladder, you have to meet the criteria of the next level up before you level up. It's just like a video game, just very, very strict. In order for you to level up your character, you have to first gain a certain quantity of experience points. In order for you to learn a new skill with your avatar, you have to first gain a certain quantity of experience points. You have to first train in certain areas. In order for you to equip certain weapons, you have to acquire certain levels of personal stats. In order for you to fight the certain bosses, you must have, and in the modern games, they actually give you a hint. But back in the old days, you had to figure this shit out. But in modern days, they will tell you the recommended power level you should be before you try to fight this boss on easy mode. But if you wanted to fight the boss on hard mode, you can just bring your ass on right now. But they'll tell you that in order for you to get this moderately done, accomplish it, but it might be a little bit challenging, the least you need to have is this much XP, this much power level, right? In order for you to go from scrubbing toilets in a fast food restaurant to owning a chain of fast food restaurants, you have to change the way you behave somewhere along the lines in order for you to go from being the janitor to being the manager. You have to change the way you interact with the staff in order to go from being a colleague to being their boss. You have to change the way you make decisions and delegate responsibilities to go from being the store manager to being a regional manager, because a store manager might get in there with the crew and help the crew get stuff done. But a regional manager shows up, tells each boss what to do, and then leaves. He just checks on everybody, make sure everything's going the way it's supposed to go, make sure there's no complaints about the manager, delegate, walk out. Might help a little bit depending on the situation, but most of the time, show up, delegate, walk out. In a corporate business, you might come in there as an intern. In order for you to make it to partner, you have to first have the behavior pattern. You have to have the attire. So you're not selling yourself for a client, or you're selling yourself for a business. If for think about it like this, all of the top 23% of wealthy individuals that do business with one another, when have you seen an owner for Johnson & Johnson or Coca-Cola or Tesla stop by your office to talk to you? Most people are going to say never happened. You might know celebrities from TV, movies, football, other sports, wrestling, and you might see them in a restaurant and just recognize them from afar because they're all over TV. But the executive board of SpaceX program, you don't know who the fuck they are. The executive board of Silicon Valley, you don't know who they are. The people who made your cell phone, your Samsung or your iPhone, you don't know who they are. You might be in traffic blowing your horn at the person in front of you who is driving a regular Honda Civic, and that person might be the owner of Honda, and you wouldn't even know. But when you walked into the boardroom of Honda and they start talking about hiring you because you're at the bottom trying to come up, you will find that the owner of that Honda Civic that you was blowing at the light now has the decision-making authority over your ability to be successful. And at the end of the day, you're not selling yourself to an employer or a client. You are carrying yourself with a level of prestige, with a level of elegance, with a level of etiquette. That's what we stop teaching our kids. That's what we stop learning ourselves, is prestige, etiquette, and elegance, and dignity. We forgot that. We forgot that. The most etiquette we were taught is elbows off the table. But there's like 3 or 4 forks, 3 or 4 knives. We don't know how to use that shit. How to hold a cup. We don't know how to do that shit. Wealthy people know how to do that shit. How not to slurp your food in this country, but how to show respect to the other countries and slurp your food over there. We don't know etiquette. But the deal isn't always done by talking about the contracts. The deal is usually done by spending time with somebody else that is successful and having a conversation with that person so that they can get to know you, so that in trusting you, they trust you with their money. So you're not selling yourself to the company. You're projecting who you really are for people to confide in you financially. That's what you're doing. And in order for you to climb the corporate ladder, more people have to trust you with their money so that you can make more money off of their money. More people have to trust you with their financial opportunities so that you can invest in those financial opportunities. But if you carry yourself as the person that's going to rob everybody in the room, Everybody's going to clutch their ideas the way white women clutch their purse with black men walking to the elevator because nobody trusts you. Is that true? The Johnson & Johnson family looks like anybody else. Exactly. Exactly. And isn't that funny? Johnson & Johnson look like everybody else. Michael Jordan doesn't wear Jordans. LeBron James doesn't wear his shoe either. But everybody who ain't got shit, that's on Section 8, living off of government funds, welfare, WIC, and school lunches, got goddamn Jordans on. You ever notice that? You ever notice that in a dealership parking lot, the employees of the dealership do not own company cars? You ever notice that? You ever went to a brand new car dealership, walked the lot, and seen employee parking, and there were all kinds of makes and models over there that none of them was the dealership that you were shopping at, but they're all trying to sell you a car off the lot? Notice that? You know what's funny about that? It's not because the company's vehicles are not valuable. It's not that the company's vehicles are garbage. It's the fact that I don't have to have the product I'm selling you because my job is to sell the product to you. But everybody in the dealership is in a suit. Whether it's the man in the pantsuit, the woman in the pantsuit, or the woman with the skirt with the blouse and everything to that effect, everybody's in a suit. Everybody is business ready to sell you a vehicle. You might go to a Dodge dealership, Ford dealership, Toyota dealership, Nissan dealership, and them motherfuckers might have Maseratis in the back, 4Runners, Civics, Corollas, Camrys, Miatas, all kind of shit back there. Not the car you're up there buying. You will rarely, I don't know, Tesla might be different, but most of the time, you will see non-Teslas on a Tesla dealership lot with license plates on them. If it was all about the image, all of the employees should have a company car. But they don't because the company's not going to give them away and the employees can't afford to buy it. So until you make it to the executive status where you're driving a Ford as an executive Ford dealer representative, driving to something to advocate for Ford, unless something like that happens, probably going to be driving in a Cadillac Escalade. He said Michael Jordan and LeBron James going to Monaco to attend F1 racing looked like anybody else until they got into the Rolls Royce. Right. And they look like anyone else. Michael Jordan usually with turtlenecks and slacks on, and LeBron James usually t-shirt and shorts on, t-shirt and jeans on. You might see him sometimes with a turtleneck and some dark colored pants on until they get into a Rolls Royce. But they're getting into a Rolls Royce because while they are rich, a lot of it is still some broke mentality because they got rich first and then learned how to manage their wealth next. Because Elon Musk is richer than them. And do you see Elon Musk showing up anywhere in a Rolls Royce? If he doesn't show up in a Tesla, you can't tell me what car to Elon Musk drives or rides in. If he doesn't show up in his own shit, you can't tell me what vehicle he rides in. When Donald Trump wasn't the president, you couldn't tell me what vehicle he rode in. Probably Cadillac Escalade. What car does his wife drive? You don't know. Point of the matter is, image is everything, but it is not the clothes that you wear, it's how you carry yourself. So the style of clothes is important because you're not supposed to be wearing street clothes to a professional situation. When you want to go out and hang out street style, you can take off your professional outfits and wear your basketball outfits on a basketball court. But what wealthy people teach is that there's a time and a place for everything. Leggings and jeggings and yoga pants is not supposed to be a fashion statement. It's only supposed to be worn at the gym. The reason why there's locker rooms in the gym is supposed to be because you're supposed to dress professionally to the gym and then change into your gym clothes in the gym, shower and change back into your professional gear after the gym, and walk out of the gym still looking professional. Poor people go to the gym in their gym clothes, work out, and sometimes come out of the gym even without a shower and get in the car to go back to the house to take a shower, where smelling like they just came from the gym. And that's a self-image. Some women who want to be perceived as more attractive than what they are, they might be 4s and 5s, and they're wearing tight clothes to emphasize the lack of figure that they have, and they'll go around with their gym clothes as daily attire to show off whatever imprint and crevices that they can show off, because they're flat as a board on both sides. But they're wearing those outfits to give off the image that they're attractive even as petite. But you know what's funny though? This is really wild. Do you see that in Asia? Isn't it funny how the women in Asia is wearing baggy clothes? Yeah, some of them wear short shorts up halfway up their thigh. Some of them might even show their midsection. But the majority of them are completely covered from head to toe. Completely covered from head to toe. They have pants, they have a long undershirt, they have a crop shirt, they have another shirt, turtleneck, they got up to the neckline, all the way down. They got baggy clothes on, they're not showing any cleavage. They got a shirt underneath the shirt where the cleavage would have shown. There's a shirt up underneath that. All you have is the pretty fake. They don't got their toes showing, but they're highly attractive and sought after by men around the world. American women, damn near naked. Not sought after by men all around the world. Nothing wrong. It's just that the modesty isn't there. Old money usually are the best dressed men and women. You're right. But you know what? When we think about it, old money doesn't have a job. So the closest thing to wealth that we think about is doctors, lawyers, and then we think nurses, because the nurses help the doctors, but the nurses are just like fast food workers. And then after that, we think about athletes, movie stars, and rappers, because those are the people with wealth. Doctors are middle class, 250, 300, $500,000 a year, especially if you have a specialty as a surgeon. Lawyers are lower middle class if you're a court-appointed lawyer, but if you're a private practice lawyer, you could find yourself $200,000, $300,000 a year as a private lawyer, especially a defense attorney. That's it. A teacher is a prestigious job, but a teacher is a minimum wage job. A nurse is a prestigious job, but a nurse is a minimum wage job. And we can't think of anything else besides an athlete. After that, the non-prestigious job is a music artist, whether you're a singer, whether you play an instrument, and then you have an actress. Those are jobs that if you get it, if you get big, then people respect you after you started making a lot of money. Before that, your parents are telling you that you're wasting your time and money. When you're a starving artist kind of situation, your parents are telling you that you're being irresponsible. You should do something more responsible. Doctor, lawyer, nurse, that's it. Doctor, lawyer, nurse, athlete. That's all they give you. Doctor, lawyer, nurse, athlete. But old money knows how to invest in a good business. Old money knows how to make businesses more successful, like finding a business that has a good business model but doesn't have the money to expand, and investing in that business model for a percentage of the profits. A lot of wealthy people have done that. Donald Trump did it. He did it with the Miss America pageant. in order for it to become the Miss Universe pageant. He did it with the WWE before the WWE was the WWF. You know, he did it back in the day when certain things wasn't shit. He invested in it, and now it is a multi-million-dollar operation. You see something with potential that needs money to expand, and you invest in that. That's what young bucks are supposed to be paying attention to. He said, when I see old money men dressed up, I get jealous. I've been dressing down on the show as of recent because I mean it's fucking hot in this room. But whenever I really leave the house to go somewhere, I'm always in a suit. I don't have to have the most expensive suit in the neighborhood, but I'm always in a suit. I always look like I'm going somewhere important or just coming back from someplace important. And it's not because I pretend like I'm something that I'm not. I've been dressing like that for about 20 years now. Actually, I've been dressing like that since I was 16, but I got better at it 20 years ago. Right now, whenever people see me heading out, whenever people see me, if I decided to take my dog for a walk, putting on a suit, putting on something that looks like I'm about to go somewhere important. Everybody knows me as the well-dressed guy in the neighborhood. Everybody knows me as the guy in the suit. Right? Even if they don't know my name. So even in areas that isn't 100% financially prestigious, those areas recognize that I am somebody that should be respected because I don't carry myself like the average person. I gave you guys that show just being 1 or 2 levels above the rest. You don't have to overachieve and have a $5,000 outfit on. You can have a $200 outfit, $150 outfit. I told you guys about how y'all can buy a 2-piece shirt pants outfit from Temu for like 20 bucks, where you can buy 5 outfits for $100 with free shipping, and just put some shoes with that. Get you some neutral color shoes. You actually you can probably buy some off of Temu for like 30 bucks. Where you can buy you 1 pair of neutral color shoes that matches all the outfits you're about to buy and spend about $140 total with $160 with taxes on 5 outfits and a new pair of shoes and have an outfit for every day of the week. And then mix and match those neutral colors and have a multitude of combinations and look sharp off of less than $200 for a week's worth of clothes. And if you threw in some socks and underwear with that, you would still be less than $200 for a week's worth of clothes. It is possible. It's just people don't. Right? He said, old money gives the impression of wealth through their clothes. No, sir. Old money gives you the impression of wealth through their charisma. It isn't because of their clothes. Because, first of all, here's a question. Here's a quick question. I'm going to leave this up here. I got a quick question. What brand of shoes does Donald Trump wear? Do you know? Off the top of your head, I don't think you do. You'd have to Google it. What suit does Donald Trump wear? Do you know? I don't think you know. Does Donald Trump wear the suit, the same brand suit as the guy sitting next to him? When you see the congressional thing where he's sitting in front of the White House desk and he's got those 5 guys next to him, he's wearing the blue suit with sometimes a black tie, sometimes a red tie. He's wearing the blue suit. And the guys around him are wearing black suits, gray suits, blue suits. Do you know what brand of clothes that those guys are wearing? No. More often than not, you have no fucking clue who makes their clothes. It's got to be a private label. But see, that's the funny part. It doesn't have to be a private label. It is just non-branded clothes where if there is a label on the collar that talks to you about dry cleaning, it might have the name of the manufacturer there. It might have the name of the manufacturer on the inner breast pocket, but it's not the way poor people would have done it. They would have bought a Louis Vuitton blazer that had the LV on it or some shit. or a Rockwear blazer that had the RW on it somewhere, or the Gucci that had the Gucci pattern all over the outfit. It is not actually private labels where it is exclusive only to wealthy people. It is unbranded clothing that they bought from manufacturers that created quality clothes that satisfied their ability to accomplish what they were trying to accomplish. You can go to Liberty. What's the name of that? Trying to think off the top of my head the rest of it. It's Liberty something. There's a Flex Fit Suits, and I think I can find it off the top of my head to try to give you a location, because I've seen them. Okay, this one is just called Suits. It's Flex Fit Suits. I was thinking about a different one. State and Liberty Clothing. Yeah, this is the one. State and Liberty Clothing. Now, State and Liberty Clothing created Flex Fit suits for athletic builds. So people who work out, kind of got them some buys and tries, and they're not able to find the right suit that fits them because their body is oddly shaped because of their exercising. And then it's a flex fit outfit because when they flex their muscles, their biceps and everything to that effect, it stretches the clothes, right? Now, State and Liberty has affordable suits that do not have the name brand on them anywhere. And I can tell you right now, I'm actually at the website because I had to find the thing to tell you exactly what I was talking about. But $595 for a full-on suit is some of the prices for some of these suits. $479. There's another one over here for $695. They're less than $1,000, but they're more than a $200 suit at Burlington Coat Factory. But this is one step away from tailor-made clothes, right? And if you send your measurements to them, they can tailor the clothes to exactly your fit. So here's one now. You see some that $897, $795, so anywhere between $475, and now I see some that are $1,000 for. These are new arrivals that they have for athletic stretch suits, flex fit suits, right? At State and Liberty. Now, and yeah, some of these are made in Hong Kong. I have a lot of suits that I was wearing to the podcast on a regular basis that came from Italy. Literally made in Italy, right? They were made in Italy, sold in New York, bought in bulk in New York, brought to Florida, sold in Florida. Florida knew nothing about it. Looked like mafia style clothes. But it was just an Italian style design that was a 1970s or 1960s design that nobody remembers because men don't wear suits anymore and women don't dress modestly and respectable anymore. Everybody's outside with their flip-flops and their shorts and their t-shirt on. So that has become the standard casual norm where women are outside in their sweats and their underwear and the men are outside in their sweats and in their underwear, and nobody's actually dressed formal or semi-formal or casual business formal to the magnitude that when somebody does put on a suit, they stand out like a sore thumb. Because people will roll out of bed and go outside looking like that instead of changing their outfits. You do realize that, while we would have a shit ton more laundry to wear, you're supposed to have bed clothes that you only wear in bed. When you get out of bed and start wandering around the house, you've got your in-house clothes you're supposed to wear. So whatever you wore to bed is not supposed to leave the bedroom. You change into your go-to-bed clothes when you're going to bed, and you get out of your going-to-bed clothes when you get ready to wander around the house. You got your around-house clothes that you wear throughout the day, right? Then when you get ready to leave the house, you're supposed to have your leave-the-house clothes. And that is not the same as fix-the-house clothes. So you should have at least 3 or 4 different types of outfits, because you have your take your ass to bed outfit, your wander around the house outfit, your fix the house outfits, your leave the house outfits, and then your work outfits. And if you're going to go one step further, church outfits and special occasion outfits. That's 7 types of outfits you're supposed to have. So you should be able to change your outfits at least twice a day, once to get out of bed, once to get back into bed, 3 times a day. If you get out of bed and then leave the house later and then come back to the house, that's 4 times, because if you're going to change back into your around the house clothes before you change into your going to bed clothes, gotta understand, we don't think about these things. But when we say that the image used to be important, but it's not important anymore, image is important. But wealthy is going to see this. And what the wealthy is going to do is they're just not going to fuck with you. They see low class behavior and say, you know what? I'm not going to fuck with that. That's it. They will ignore you in conversations or entertain you in conversations and not disclose anything of relevance to you in that conversation. Part ways, they'll excuse themselves from the conversation because they have things to do, or claim that they have things to do, just to detach themselves from the conversation with you, relocate to the other side of the room and go talk to somebody else. They will respectfully remove themselves from your situation because they have no respect for you. That's it. Image is everything. Lower class individuals don't know this. You say, you are right. It's great to see how men and women were dressed in the 1930s, just walking on the streets of New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Today, we dress like slobs. You're right. You're actually right. Modern society dresses like shit. One of the reasons why I was so fascinated, because Steven upped his game. He went and bought him, I do believe it was some Stacey Adams, a newer pair of shoes that he was getting himself. And then he got himself quite a few more outfits, and he was upping his attire so that he could be a lot more presentable when he's doing things that's not going to work. Getting new outfits so that he could wear to college, just so that if somebody picked him up in his field and had him as an intern, he's already dressing the part so that when they take him in, he looks put together before he walks in as an intern. But if he's dressing like a slob when he goes to college, an internship opportunity is not going to happen, because if that's how you dress when you go to college, college is a business and you're going there to make business. They're not going to hire you because they're going to assume that you're going to bring that look to their business. You close doors by the way you dress. You close doors by the way you act. You close doors by the way you talk to people. You gotta understand. There's a certain quantity of decorum, because even billionaires curse, but at the end of the day, they don't curse like sailors. I've heard President Trump say bullshit quite a few times in a press conference. But he ain't motherfucker this and motherfucker that in a press conference neither. We've got to think about how we want to be perceived by society in a respectful fashion, and then carry ourselves to that magnitude. And then, like I said a couple hours ago, we have to put ourselves in a position where we no longer make impulsive decisions for the sake of mic drop moment. I told him, entertaining the masses style negative behavior. As I said earlier today, if you are in a situation where everybody's pulling out their cell phone to record what you're about to do next, you are contemplating making a bad decision, because good decisions aren't recorded for social media. Good decisions aren't publicized to go viral. Social media promotes negative behavior. Somebody has to get fucked over in order for them to document it and put it up on social media. So the only time you're going to be documented doing something good on social media is when somebody is being fucked over and you're helping them out of that fucked up situation. And that is when you will be caught on camera helping somebody else get out of a bad spot. Otherwise, if you are the target of the video, it is likely because you are doing something inappropriate that will devalue and degrade you. And they're going to publicize that for entertainment for themselves. I don't know if y'all remember when we was kids and our parents told us don't be class clowns. We're going to school for an education. We're not going to school to entertain the people around us. Don't be societal clowns. We're going into society to make money. We're not out there into society being a fucking court gesture to entertain society. Y'all remember mom and daddy used to say, close the windows and doors. We ain't trying to cool off the whole neighborhood. Put you some damn clothes on. We're not trying to trigger the lust of the whole neighborhood. What we want is people to respect us for who we are, not desire us for what they want to do to us. We want people to respect us for what we're capable of, not look towards the next funny thing we're going to do. And the fact of the matter is that until we change our decision making, our kids are not going to make the right decisions, and their kids aren't going to make the right decisions. And when we have a generation of failure, generational failure, we can't blame those who learned better and started doing better. We can't blame the government. We can't blame people that are not in our neighborhood for the reason why we're still failing at 40 years old. We're 35, 40 years old, 20, 30, 40 years old, and we're still failing. We're still failing because we are making bad choices. When we were 5 and 7 and 9 years old, our parents were making the bad choices for us. And we just dealt with the fallout of that. But now that we're grown, now that we're living on our own, or living with roommates, or living with spouses, romantic partners, now our bad decisions directly impact us. So it's not the man keeping us down. It's not society keeping us down. It's not DHF projects or DEF projects that's keeping us down. We make bad choices, and then we want to deflect responsibility onto somebody else and play the victim so that we don't hold ourselves responsible for the stuff that we do wrong. That's the reason why we are forever self-oppressed, not societally oppressed. You know, a lot of people argue the pitch about racism still being around, and I keep telling them it's more social classism than anything. Social classism. You can't afford to be in this social group. They don't even make fun of you anymore. They just exclude you. You can't afford to be here. How do we exclude you? $75 cover, $200 a plate. You know, special shout out to Cardinal Rules. They exclude you. $2,500 ticket. They exclude you. You can't afford to be here. They do not allow the riffraffs to be in certain places by putting a price tag on it. They put a dress code on it. You got to dress a certain way. If you don't come dress a certain way, they'll tell you, you can't come in here with that outfit. She says self-oppression is only part of the equation. Self-oppression is the largest part of the equation. She said, I'd rather not be there. Well, financially speaking, you can't afford to be there. You don't want to waste your whole life savings on going places that's outside of your financial means. But there are a lot of individuals that will go to places like, she said, even if I could, I wouldn't. No, that's not the case. Because if there was a $500,000 business deal at a place that has a $2,000 cover to get into, and you were trying to make that business deal, you'd go. For the sake of entertainment, you wouldn't go, and that's the mindset you're coming from. You're coming from the position of, you know, I'm not going to waste $500 on a yacht party. It's a fucking yacht party. I agree with you on that. But if the owner of the yacht was having a investment discussion on that yacht about the marina, where you could potentially get 5% of the shares off of the marina, you would be at that yacht party. And if you had to pay $500 to get on a fucking boat so that you could have that conversation with that guy so that you can get 5% of the shares, you would have paid the money to get on the boat. But if you couldn't afford to get on the boat, even if you wanted to get 5% of the shares off the marina, you can't afford to be in the discussion because you can't afford to get on the boat. That's how people are excluded from certain business deals. They say, oh, well, the best business deals are kept secret. No, the best business deals are exclusive to the people who can afford to be in the room to be involved in the conversation. The majority of big business deals is done over breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because breakfast, lunch, and dinner is a tax write-off for the business when you are talking about business while you eat. So if you want to be involved in a big business deal in a five-star restaurant that is a $300 a place, a $300 a plate restaurant, so that you can close a $50,000 deal, then yeah, you're going to pay to get in the building because you're going to get that money. Sorry for the F bomb. No, you're good. I would drop the F bomb on a regular basis if I could, but I don't drop the. I have to change from that mentality to throw down a different behavior set. I still have a lot of growing to do. I recognize that, but I also learned a whole lot of things along the way, and I still recognize that. I understand where you came from. Your mentality was, fuck that, I'm not wasting my money on that. Because for the sake of entertainment, it makes no sense for me to spend $2,500 to go to a party. That's just logical mentality. But if that party was $2,500 cover, so that you can be in the same room as Donald Trump and Elon Musk when they're talking about the AI, that is the robot AIs that are going to be out there doing whatever it is that they're going to be doing, where each AI is going to be producing a $2,000 profit per shareholder. You might spend $2,500 to get in a room, but if there's like 1,000 AI about to be released, you're going to get $2,000 of profit from each one of those AI. You want to be in that room. You're going to pay what it costs to get there. You're going to dress the part to get in the building. Right? So ultimately, yeah, it's the people. It is the people. But ultimately, social classism is going to be what divides you. One of the things that, like, for example, those of us in lower middle class lifestyle, we don't pass by wealthy people and know it on a regular basis. We don't eat in places with wealthy people and know it on a regular basis. She says, I'll live underground. Right. But living underground requires a larger quantity of money because it costs a shit ton of money to build a property underground. 3-bedroom house, ventilated, air conditioning, central air and heat or whatever, solar panels, backup generators, probably $500,000 house, $750,000 house, $2.5 million house. They're going to be very expensive. Right? It's not just a shipping container in the dirt. Like the ancient Slavs. The sewers with the crocs. I mean, if you could try that, but again, when we start talking about prestige, when we start talking about the people that are trying to build themselves up in society, it's social classism moreover than racism, because at the end of the day, if you can't afford to be in the room where the good business deals are, no, you're okay. No, you're okay. I'm good with you. But if you can't afford to be in the same room where the good business deals are, more often than not, you're not going to be able to get involved in those big deals. You got big multi-million-dollar real estate investment projects. Nobody knows how to find the conversation to get involved to invest in it, even if you got the money to invest in it. Well, if you had enough money to invest in it and you were going to those soirees and those business meetings and those cocktail parties with the wealthy individuals, one of the things that's going to be talked about in those dinner parties is some guy or some lady that's got a surefire deal, multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-hour something or other, and he's looking for investors. You would only know because you're at the table when the conversation happens. You don't have to be at the head of the table to be at the table. But you have to change the way you make decisions in order for you to even get in the room to be seated at the table. You have to change the way you carry yourself in order to be accepted out of the parking lot. in order for you to get into the room, in order for you to be seated at the table. And the decisions that you make before you get to the building will be judged before you enter the building. If you make it in the building, you were pre-approved, like a credit card. Not like an app, like, no, we're going to give it to you if you show up and sign the papers. And a lot of the times, some of the biggest deals made between successful individuals is made not because of what was in the paperwork, but because those two people trust each other. The paperwork is usually a formality. You got to look over the paperwork. You got to make sure that the paperwork benefits you, but it's usually a formality. All right. We had a large quantity of rants for tonight, and we didn't even get a chance to touch base on all the stuff that I had prepared for y'all, so I'm going to roll it over next week, which is good. That's all I have for you guys for tonight. I appreciate all of the comments that came in. That it was very eventful. Special shout out to Cardinal Rules, FX Trader, Michael, Steven, OG Kicks for diving into the show and providing their 2 cents in there. I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you this information to make you guys higher value men, not only by helping you improve your financial lives, but also changing your decision-making in your personal lives. You have to find the things that are inside of your control that you don't like and make those changes, and then navigate around the things in your life that are outside of your control. Ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can change to make yourselves higher value women. You also have to prioritize your 20 and 30-year plan, reverse engineer that to what you need to do today. Proactively achieving your 20 and 30-year plan while keeping your eyes and ears open for the proper suitor that has the personality and characteristics, the drive, ambition, dedication, motivation, integrity, and determination to make it on their own financial goals, whatever their 20-year plan is. And then see what their goals are and see if those goals mesh well with your goals, because y'all don't have to have the exact same goals. But if you both have forward-thinking, long-term satisfaction goals, not short-term gratification goals, then you guys will be able to be more successful together, where y'all can help each other accomplish your goals, where 2 people can make it to $1 million faster than one. But you need to figure out where you want to be at in 20 or 30 years in detail. What kind of house or apartment or condo you want to be in, what country you want it to be in, what city and state you want it to be in, what kind of neighborhood do you want it to be in, how much is it going to cost, whether or not you're going to have housekeeping and maids and all this other stuff going on, what kind of vehicles you want to drive, what year, make, and model is it going to be? Is it going to be something brand new, or is it something going to be old school, rebuilt kind of situation? What kind of outfits you're going to have, what kind of personal life you're going to have as far as luxuries and entertainments. Are you going to be straight to the point, or are you going to be living a life around? All of that stuff comes at a cost. And if you're thinking 20, 30 years from now, you're looking at 4% interest every year until you meet that, without taxation included. And then you want to capitalize on calculating how much it will cost to get there. And then build from today the type of portfolio where you start taking a little bit of money out of your earned income and start investing it in that. And as you change from your discretionary spending, you can reduce the quantity of discretionary spending that's wasted on short-term gratification and redirect that money towards long-term satisfaction to expand your future. You're going to find yourself in a position where if you are living off of 30% of your income and invest in the other 70, within 10 years, you'll be a multimillionaire. If you're living off of 50% of your income and investing the other 50, within 15 years, you'd be a millionaire. And if you're taking 30% of your income and investing it towards your future, within 20 years, you would get there. So if you're 20 by 60, 65, you'd be there. You'd be at a multimillionaire status. If you're doing 70% of your income investing in your future, and you're 40, by the time you're 55, you'd be there. And if you do it correctly for the remainder of your adulthood, once you've crossed that threshold, once you've crossed the amount of money that you believe is necessary for you to be financially stable, you will find yourself being able to live that life stress-free with no requirement to go to work. Doesn't mean you got to quit your job, but now you're going to work because you want to, not because you have to, which is a whole different environment, right? Now, that's all I got for you guys for tonight. So I'm going to start by saying thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.